Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, Hulk Hogan makes children cry, AEW's tournaments make me cry, BET needs a Black History lesson, and the thing that I miss most about the pro wrestling, all that and more today. And joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard podcast network, Mr. Co-host to you. He narrowly missed having Hulk Hogan at his bar mitzvah. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. I never would have invited him to my bar mitzvah. By 92, I was sick of Hogan. 92, I was 12 going into 13. I was sick of Hogan.
But you know, I still get, there was some guy a week or two ago tweeted, and that Brian Last, he's such a mark. Look who he had for his bar mitzvah. Like you booked your bar mitzvah. I know you've always been an enterprising businessman, but and you're an energetic young fellow. But like you booked your and arranged the entertainment and the treats and the eats and things, all the things that go into the bar mitzvah.
Well, first of all, if the comment was when I was 12, I was a mark, you're right. I was a complete fucking mark. I was 12. It's called being 12, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, you haven't changed in 30 years, I'm telling you.
You weren't smart to the business. You were 12. Yeah, that's exactly right. Secondly, when I was 12, Vicious Vincent was on the radio on Long Island, and it was tailored to kids, and it was entertaining, and he was booked to be entertainment at the bar mitzvah for the kids, and it worked out. And by the time I turned 13, the show did not have the same appeal as it had when I was 12.
Well, but also it was here's where the parallels between you and I keep coming. And for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Vicious Vincent, as he was then known, it's Shit Stain himself, was at young Brian Last bar mitzvah because while we found out that my fan club president is the one who introduced Vicious Vincent and his radio show to John Arezzi and started that whole plague, your bar mitzvah was the first time that Vince Russo could claim that he ever took money under false pretenses on the pretense of being a pro wrestling personality.
You're probably right. You're probably
See,
right.
It's amazing. It's like we created our own Lex Luthor and, you know, the Joker origin story, our fucking, except they haven't had the success, you know, they're more like the heels on the Superman TV series from the 50s that were all gangsters that hadn't figured out after 7 seasons they couldn't just shoot Superman. Why did they not have it? Superman was a character of DC Comics. They had Jimmy Olsen, they had Perry White, they had Lois Lane, they had Superman and Clark Kent. Why didn't they have any of the supervillains?
None of them. And apparently, if Richard Donner hadn't been fired before the finishing of Superman 2, and if it had gone on, they had other ideas for the Christopher Reeve version of Superman, various villains that could have come in, but they never did it on the TV series. When did you find out, when you first saw the TV series, did you see it in color or did you see the black and white version?
Well, I don't know for sure because the first time that I saw the TV series, because folks, I'm old, but this series ran from, what was it, 1952 to 1957, maybe 51, 57, whatever. First couple seasons in black and white, rest of it was in color because they wanted to take advantage of the merchandising. There was a merchandising wave there, and etc. Go ahead.
That was actually one of the smartest things if you really look at like TV history. They're producing the Superman show in the early and mid-50s. They decided to start shooting in color, although no one had color TVs. And color TV started getting out there by the end of the decade, but the networks didn't even go full color until, 66? So
yes,
they preemptively knew the future was color, and no other shows were doing this. They shot everything in color.
The Lone Ranger.
The
Lone Ranger did the same thing.
That's true. And they shot it all in color.
But nevertheless, you asked whether I saw the black and whites or the colors first. The answer was, I don't know, because I saw them in Cincinnati or off the Cincinnati TV station, WXIX Channel 19, the independent station, when I was at Aunt Lola's, and she still had a black and white TV, and it was like 1969 or whatever. So there you go. And it was a black and white TV sitting on top of a console, bigger screen TV that had been dead for the past fucking 5 or 6 years. It was from the 50s, just like everybody had back then. But it was a black and white with the rabbit ears. And Petey, her parakeet, used to go and fly and sit on the rabbit ears. Sometimes he would help the reception. That's where I saw the Sheik's TV too. Hans Schmidt was ugly even in black and white.
Did it look like that TV from the author of the Charles Fisher?
The back of the book of the Midget Fischer. Yes,
it's my favorite thing in the world now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Charlie Fisher later on too again. But anyway, here at the top of the program, so that we can recover and keep positive, I want to thank everybody again for me and for Stacy, because we've just, again, since I said it a couple weeks ago, we've still gotten some cards and letters and presents remembering Harley Quinn. And some people did custom art with her name or picture involved or both or whatever. And we've saved all the cards and the letters, and we've saved all the presents, the gifts. But with everything going on, some of them, they got separated. So I don't know who sent what, but we had in the same place. I want to thank Garth and Heather, and they didn't put their last name on the letter, but for the wind spinner that they sent, and Dave and Ray Cooper. And that's not twin brothers. Ray has an E on the end of it, so I think she's a lady. She's a lady. They sent a crystal glass heart with a picture of me and Harley, not engraved, but I don't know the process, incorporated inside of it with a stand with colored lights and etc. And Stacy has that, and another plaque that somebody sent on her nightstand there. And Jason Ingram, who's been a member of the cult of Cornette for I don't know how long, sent a beautiful letter and some pictures of his daughter, Sarah, who passed away, unfortunately, a little while back, just a short while back, with their pup, Annie, little orphan Annie. And I want to thank him and everybody else that sent some things. But anyway, did you hear about the big news in Louisville, Brian, this week?
Oh, no, you guys had news?
Oh, for God's sake.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about it.
This is one of the most teeming metropolises. We have movie premieres here. Now we have a horse race every May you might have heard of. Junior Bridgeman. Paz, do you recognize that name? You're a baseball fan. Do you recognize the name Junior Bridgeman, not in your sport wheelhouse?
I do not.
Well, then that's why you're relegated to being a fan of the Mets or the Jets or whoever the fuck it is.
It's the
there.
Mets. It's never the Jets.
Well, I thought it was Benny and the Jets.
That's a song, but the Jets are a team that I do not associate with.
Well, they always spoke highly of you. Anyway, Junior Bridgeman died this past week at the Galt House downtown. Apparently some type of heart attack or he was there and boom, he was gone. But Junior Bridgeman was one of the first star players when Denny Crum moved to Louisville from California. He'd been John Wooden's assistant coach at UCLA and started in the early 70s, started putting together the big teams. Junior Bridgeman was one of the first star Cardinals players. So he was a legend in this town at that point. But I think it was top 10 in the NBA draft and played like 10 years for the Milwaukee Bucks and then moved back to Louisville and started buying businesses and became a self-made billionaire. This guy legitimately, Shaquille O'Neal was on one of the sports talk programs, said, yes, I learned everything I know about being a businessman from Junior Bridgeman. He had like 500 fast food franchises, a fucking international Coca-Cola bottling fucking deal. He just bought part of the Milwaukee Bucks. I get just for old time's sake. And he was one of the biggest philanthropists in town. He'd give millions and millions of dollars to all these programs or hospitals or, whatever in Louisville. So everybody's like, oh shit. But can you, from a college basketball player that did not come from a wealthy background to being a fucking billionaire the hard way? And what did we talk about here a while back, Brian? If you had $1 billion, what would you do with it? He actually gave a bunch of it away. Because what the fuck do you need with that much money? And didn't I do the math and prove that if you had $1 billion, you could cure cancer, feed hungry children, to help fucking abused animals, make 20 of your friends millionaires, pay all the taxes, and still have more money than you could ever fucking spend?
You may have said stuff. I don't agree with you. I think if I can get $1 billion, I could use that in a lot of ways. I don't have to give it away to anyone. Give it away. Get out of here.
Well, give it away. Give it away now. Give it away. Give it away. Give it away now.
We found someone more out of pitch than Anthony Kiedis. How about that? It's Jim Cornette.
What could you? Why? If you had that much money,
the last library for creative research. I want that to be the right-looking building, and it really needs to be spectacular and gigantic. Right there alone, depending on where I put it, the property taxes, that could be $1 billion.
Maybe you want to build that. What was that? The Creative Research Center that you're naming the place?
The last library for creative research.
Yes. Well, meanwhile, I'm just thinking, boy, I ought to get that sliding door on the deck.
Well, we're going to have sliding doors in the Jim Cornette wing for the big exhibit. But we're also going to have exhibits, apparently, at the library. See, we're coming up with all sorts of revolutionary ideas on the fly. This is how we do it here.
I got to go down to the library and see some of the exhibits, and then I'll go to the museum and read a book.
Well, that's one of the reasons I need such size in the building, is because it'll be a museum and library. And if I'm putting my name on it, it's going to be top tier. And it's going to be the greatest experience for anyone who's ever been to a library. So it's going to take a lot of money. What
are they going to be able to immerse themselves in a book? Like, are you going to have a giant book that they flip the cover open and just jump into, and suddenly they're in the story, and everything that's happening to the main character is happening to them, which when you got to the fucking adult reading section might be enjoyable.
I hadn't thought of that idea, but we're willing to recognize good ideas even if they come from outside of our executive circle. That's a great idea, and I think the budget just went up.
So there you have it, folks. Brian Lass is going to commit $1 billion to getting you virtually fucked.
Hey, Tony, if you're listening, I'm accepting donations. I'm accepting donations towards the building and the Hanukkah Pizza Fund.
Can we work out a way where they're deductible as a charitable organization for all of his fans that have to be virtually fucked because they can't be legitimately fucked?
Yeah, Tony, from one not-for-profit to another, please send some money.
Just bounce it back and forth between those companies that aren't being run for a profit. Speaking of something that's not being run for a profit, folks, hurry up while time is available and see the Queen of the Ring in theaters near you. Because you want to experience the immersive big screen effect. As a matter of fact, in some theaters, they are now showing Queen of the Ring in Feel Around, where every time that someone puts a hold on in the wrestling match on the screen, one of the theater employees behind your seat will reach around and grab you, probably depending on what gender you are, in the upper area of your body.
Well, listen, we don't want to hurt the ticket sales. That's not the goal of what we're doing here. So let's say that that's going to be a thing that's going to happen.
Actually, in conjunction with what I was just talking about, I think some people are buying expecting that service.
Well, there are no guaranteed reach arounds, but you will see around and you will see this movie. Why am I doing a plug? It's your thing. You go.
You'll see around before it sees you around at Queen of the Ring in theaters now. And Brian, again, I've conquered the moving pictures, as Aunt Lola used to say. And now I'm also conquering television, because as soon as the motion pictures go from theaters, on television debuts Dark Side of the Ring, Tuesday, March 25th at 10 o'clock Eastern time, and then subtract an hour as you move farther to the west, on Vice TV. And we talked to Evan Husney from Dark Side, and we previewed them. Those clips are on the YouTube channel, or I'm sure we will be discussing each one as they occur in a weekly fashion, but heck of a lineup this year, and include, I just want to see what they do with the old footage of the Sheik and the other hysterical figures. Superstar Billy Graham is going to be fun to see some more of him. And then what's next after television? We've got podcasts, so we did movies, TV. What medium am I missing?
Maybe next year for the next season of Dark Side, 'cause they're running out of topics. Maybe they could start exhuming bodies and just seeing who's still there and who isn't.
Do you think that some people may have escaped the grave, and we wouldn't find them if we went to dig them up?
I don't know, but we're talking about the Sheik then. Let's find out about the Sheik now. How was he buried? What was he wearing? Does he have his headdress? Was he buried in his headdress? I forgot what Brian Solomon wrote in his book.
I believe he was. And the minister, or reverend, whatever the category was, called him Sheik through the whole ceremony, except for he called him by his name once, and then Sheik through the rest of the ceremony. But I would think that if we dug anybody up, the only one that would look the same way he did when he was buried would be Rick Knox.
The referee. I forgot who you were talking about.
The referee.
Like, which dead guy is he talking about?
The only one I can think of that looked the same as when he died as he does, now would be. But anyway, Brian, before we get started with the program here, we got to mention that the merchandise sale for March merch, the March to March merch, is going on now at jimcornette.com, where that fine, incredibly produced and slick paper and bold colors and wonderful writing and etc. graphic novel Behind the Curtain is on sale for $19.95 this month. And if you buy any action figure or tag team set, you get a free 2-hour classic wrestling DVD from the Wrestling Gold series. And of course, all of these things can be personally autographed to your specifications. And, Brian, I always say that I will write anything if you want me to cuss somebody out for you or whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. I had to turn 2 down at Christmas time. There's always 2 in every crowd that wanted me to write something positive about their Trumpiness or the Trump himself. And I gave the first one a chance to, get serious, and they sent something else. But I just refunded the second one automatically because it was so overly praiseworthy of Schittler, and told Hotchkiss to block them so they can't buy anything else. But I will write inappropriate things.
That'll teach them.
If necessary. That's right. I don't want any contact with that person trying to fucking pull some shenanigans. But I did. I'll have you know that one person over Christmas time wanted me to write "fuck Brian last." And I did. But I changed the exclamation point to a question mark where it became "fuck Brian last." And then there you go.
Well, honestly, shouldn't I get a cut of that one?
Let me mark that down. Hold on. Can you hear my pen clicking?
Yeah.
Well, good. Then my noise filter is not filtered out my pen clicking so that I can click it down. Send Brian Bupkis.
Oh.
And Brian Bupkis is not a photographer from the Detroit area.
I thought you were talking about the football player Dick Bupkis.
No, he was actually Brian Bupkis's cousin, but he made good. He got out of the small town and made good in the football.
Was it a woman?
Anyway,
Was it a woman who said "fuck Brian" last? Was it a woman? Was it a what? Did she write a question mark?
No, it was a man, and he wrote an exclamation point. I believe he has some obviously some jealousy issue, probably wanting to be sitting where you are now.
Oh, this chair
within the magnitude of me.
This chair is not that great. It has nothing to do with the magnitude. It's the chair, the swivel.
Well, this little chair of mine, I'm gonna make it shine. All right, we're gonna talk. Oh, don't start trying to accompany me now. For heaven's sake, you're not just tickling the ivories over there.
That was a tickle. But it's your show. It's going great so far.
It's going great so far. I don't know if that was a tickle or a taunt, but I'm trying to start the show. If you quit fiddling with your organ over there. Because we got an email. Remember what was it? Was several weeks back. I don't know. I've lost track of time. It could have been months. Who knows? But we got a question about Charles Midget Fischer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But he was the question said that I believe he was from Butternut, Wisconsin, or whatever the fuck.
That's right.
And we thought, is this a goddamn rib? And I believe we laughed at it, right? To some extent. But come to find out, but the thing is that we were trying to think of, for one thing, small people, but also this goes way back. There was a Charles Midget Fischer and a Santa Claus, Victoria. There was a Charles Midget Fischer, but his heyday was the 20s and 30s. And not being of the notoriety of the Strangler Lewises and etc., we weren't thinking about Charles Midget Fischer. So see that in the vast history of wrestling, did you heard of him?
I hadn't heard of him either. And after the show, I went to look through the files, and I went through the midget files, thinking it would be there. Because the email we got didn't say anything about him being a heavyweight or in that wrestling heavyweights or anyone above. It just said midget. It just said midget.
Well,
midget.
he wasn't a heavyweight, but he did wrestle somewhat above his weight class. But he was so far back that they did have in those days. And this was the way Roy Welch and Nick Goulas got Nashville. Was the other promoter had been featuring the heavyweights, and Scott Teal's research. Thankfully, we know these things. Crowbarpress.com, folks. But Nick and Roy came in. Roy had the light heavyweights. The guys, because as Roy was 190 pounds, but in those days, that wasn't as small for athletes as it seems in modern times. But the light heavyweights would a lot of times have more action, etc., and they sometimes would win out if you didn't have top quality heavyweights or a good promotion opposite it. And that's apparently Charles Midget. I ran into his goddamn name when I was looking up something else for something else I'm doing, if that's clear enough. And Charles Midget Fischer wrestled in Louisville at the Louisville Gardens, which was then the Armory, in like 1936. Because he obviously out of the Midwest. So anyway, yes, Virginia, there was a Charles Midget Fischer, and we got an email from Adam Smith of East Yorkshire, England, who has researched this thing out to yin yang. And I will read it here because his research project was looking at the career of Wild Bill Longson.
Oh, that should be a microbrew. Wild Beer Longson.
Wild Beer Longson. Wild Bill Longson and his popularization of the pile driver. And while he was doing that, he had uncovered this information. The topic of who invented the pile driver in professional wrestling is a matter debated amongst historians. In the modern day, Bill Longson is often credited as being the innovator of the move, and whilst this is incorrect, he was certainly the professional wrestler responsible for the wider popularization of the move. But the first noted use of the pile driver occurred January 5th, 1931 by Charles Midget Fischer in Kansas City, Missouri. Fischer was a claimant to the World Middleweight Championship. On the show, he had defeated Sailor Jack Woods in 34 minutes with a quote-unquote pile drive. And apparently Kenneth R. Bones, there's two S's on the end of it, who penned Charlie Fisher's biography, Pile Driver, The Life of Charles Midget Fischer, which you may have a comment on, later explained that in his research for the book, he had spoken extensively with Charles's son, who had explained that the move was markedly different from what modern fans would recognize as a pile driver. The Fischer pile driver would see the opponent's head clamped between Fischer's thighs. Fischer would then only partially lift the opponent's feet off the, he says floor, but the mat, and then quickly, quote unquote, flick out his feet, sending the opponent's head crashing into the canvas. And let's stop there for a second, Brian, but this makes sense for something we're going to hear in the second paragraph. But it does add a, because Bill Longson was certainly not pile driving anybody in 1931, but we will come to find out why he might have seen it done. So it's all there's always you never can invent anything that isn't really a takeoff anymore, as Gomer Pyle would say. I guess that's my point.
You know, and there's always these mysteries about so many of the things that are commonplace in wrestling and have been for 50, 60 years, whatever now. We really don't know where they started. We assume, Danny McShane may have invented the blade, but maybe that's not a fair assumption. I will say, I assumed while Bill Longson was one of the first people to use the pile driver just because he is the name that everyone associates with it going back to the 40s. But he must have seen something somewhere. And you brought up Buddy Rogers, not even about this, about something else recently, about the crisscross. That's what it was. About his ability to see things and pick up on what other people were doing and apply it to his own work.
Well, Rogers is about to come into this too. So Adam continues, and here's where this starts to make sense. While Fischer's version of the move lacked the theatrical nature that would later be associated to the application of the pile driver, he had brought the move into pro wrestling. The pile driver was further popularized by one of Fischer's adversaries in the ring, the Great Mephisto. And this isn't Frankie Kane, the Great Mephisto. This is the guy that Frankie Kane stole the name and the Great Mephisto from. This was another guy that was a light heavyweight at best in the pioneer days of the 30s. And Frankie Kane, in his first book, Scott Teal, crowbarpress.com, goes into detail.
Is the name of the book.
Raising Kane goes into great detail about this guy and how he was one of the great workers. And I will before we go back to this paragraph, I'll preface this by saying, when guys in that era are talked about as being great workers, it's not that they were doing moonsaults or executing these, goddamn stunning revolutionary moves. They talk about them being great workers as far as the ability to not only draw a crowd, but captivate a crowd and have a match that was different than the normal shit that people saw, that took them a step up in terms of, oh my gosh, they're into it, or the peaks and valleys, the roller coaster ride, and making sure their shit looked good and different. That's the type of thing that they compliment great workers. And Adam continues, Mephisto was born Julius John Waronic on the 4th of December, 1910 in Meriden, Connecticut. And he goes into some history on him, and he has annotated all these with newspaper attributions, which I'm not going to go into, but I've heard the stories before of the great Mephisto. He was in trouble and in jail when he was a teenager, and he was in a near fatal car wreck. But finally, in 1928, he becomes a wrestler, and his first known appearance as Mephisto occurred in Boston at the Mechanics Hall on April 6, 1932. And he ended up being a popular attraction for the promoter there. He attracted 6,000 to Fenway Park to watch him beat Art Flynn in August 1932. Well, the great Mephisto worked for Al, not even the previous, the pre-Al Half territory out of Columbus in the mid-30s. And in March 1935, the great Mephisto first encountered Charlie Fisher in the Music Hall Sports Arena in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the match lasted 20 seconds and ended when Fisher executed the piledriver on Mephisto. By that summer, 2 or 3 months later, Mephisto was using the piledriver to win his matches. And it was then touted as his signature hold. Mephisto not only was so good that he attracted Frankie Kane, who was growing up and starting to become aware of the business at that time, but also Nature Boy Buddy Rogers has said before that Mephisto was the greatest in-ring worker that ever lived. And Rogers' some of his early formative years were in Ohio. And if you go back, and Brian, now you'll think about this because you can visualize what they're saying, because Rogers did a pile driver more like this than he did a normal, not even a modern day pile driver, but a Bill Longson pile driver. He would grab the guy either by the ass of the tights or just, around the waist, but he would sit down real quick. It was more of just a quick leaping motion, boom, rather than a pick up and a drop. And you've seen that in a number of the matches that Rogers used.
Yeah.
So he had to get it from, a guy who pretty much got it from the source. And according to Adam, once again, with this, all kinds of research to back it up, by the fall of 1937, the move had come to the attention of Wild Bill Longson, and he would use it as his trademark for the rest of his life. But even though there's not that much Longson out there, the publicity pictures that he had taken of him, you've seen him with a guy up in the pile driver position, has him picking a guy all the way straight up. So anyway, the midget strikes again.
Well, I got the biography. I'm going to try to find a way to read it. I have a lot of books to get caught up on, and this is a big one. I sent you a picture. The back cover of the book is the greatest photo of an author I've ever seen, because he clearly chose it himself, and this is what he wanted to share with the world. And again, I'm puzzled by the choice, but I love it. It's my favorite thing about the book. I haven't read it yet.
Well, we don't know the author, so we're not trying to, but it's an odd choice. It's worth the price of the book alone to see the picture.
It's not even in focus.
This fellow.
It's not even in focus.
Oh, it's in focus enough. But Adam, we thank you from East Yorkshire, England, who, it's a shame that the folks over in the UK have to do our research, that we've lost out on this, that all this stuff happened in Connecticut and Ohio and Minneapolis and places like that. And it's got to come from East Yorkshire. Where are our domestic historians when we need them?
And most of them may be limp. The problem is we need a really good book and a really good history of Ohio, and that hasn't really been done yet, because people probably lose sight on for how long that was a powerhouse for wrestling, how many guys were booked out of Ohio, how successful things were in Ohio, because it went away pretty early. It went away. I mean, when did Ohio go away? Early 60s, mid 60s? And then, guys ran there and brought it back at times, but in terms of it being a powerhouse in wrestling.
Well, see, it didn't as much go away as it got split up, because in those days, and especially with Al Haft in Columbus and him being a powerful promoter and centrally located, Ohio to the various Midwestern and Northeastern states and even the Mid-Atlantic states, but once that, he faded by the wayside and Cincinnati became part of the Sheik's territory. Well, Cincinnati, firstly, was taken over by Barnett in the late 50s, along with the rest of the Sheik's territory and Bruisers, what would become Sheik's and Bruisers territory. But Columbus kind of went in that direction, but Cleveland got taken by the Northeastern Buffalo circuit. So they started, when Al Haft lost his power and pull and business, they started, annexing the territories adjacent, different towns in Ohio, and even some of the towns in the lower part of Ohio, in West Virginia, were part of the WWF for a while. So it did, and then the Pittsburgh territory was around for a while. It was part of that. So it just kind of got all split up, is the answer to the question that I think you asked, because it's been so long since I started rambling.
It's been a while.
Hey, did you walk off away from me? You're echoing.
No, I was grabbing something back here because I actually just got it. You brought up Pittsburgh. This is a Tri-State Wrestling TV Stars booklet / magazine. Rogers on the cover with the belt. So this is, I'm going to say 63. Joseph Tootsmont, Secretary Treasurer of Pennsylvania Wrestling Inc. and Pittsburgh's promoter. Vincent McMahon.
I can believe Secretary. Would you make Tootsmont the treasurer of anything?
No. Vincent McMahon, President of Pennsylvania Wrestling Inc. and promoter in Washington, D.C. Fred Kohler, Vice President of Pennsylvania Wrestling Inc. and promoter in Chicago. And finally, Gene Dargan, an associate promoter of Pennsylvania Wrestling Inc. in the tri-state area. And the first article here is about our renaissance of wrestling. Live action on Channel 11. And then also I have here, is this the one that has... This came out like a year later. Listen to this title history. You ready? I'll start in 42 with Bill Longson.
Uh-oh.
Bill Longson defeated Sabo. Yvonne Robert defeated Longson. Bobby Manigoff defeated Robert. Bill Longson defeated Manigoff. Now we're in 47. Whipper Billy Watson defeated Longson. Lou Thez defeated Watson. Longson defeated Thez. Thez defeated Longson. Whipper Billy Watson defeated Thez, 56. Lou Thez defeats Watson. Dick Hutton defeats Thez. Pat O'Connor defeated Hutton. Buddy Rogers defeated Pat O'Connor. Bruno Sammartino defeated Buddy Rogers. So this pretends that the WWF title history is from the NWA title history, which obviously goes pre-NWA there.
Aye. Well, but because and later on, Bruno would own that territory. And they would mostly consider themselves for the next, 50 years, either a WWF town or WWF adjacent, where Bruno's promotion used a lot of the same talent, even though he had his guys. So they had kind of annexed that part of the country there.
Someone recently sent us, the last thing on any of this, even though it loosely relates to it, Hank Garrett, the actor, and I think he may have been a stuntman, but...
Oh, yes, I saw that, but go ahead.
Well, he wrestled apparently also, and he teamed up with Lenny Montana. He had some stories about that, but he was asked, I think it was Gilbert Gottfried's show. They asked him, how'd you become a wrestler? And he's like, I was working at a gym and I met this guy, Tootsmont, and he said, you should be a wrestler. And I said, okay. He goes, you're the Minnesota Farm Boy. And that was my gimmick. They just gave me this gimmick. Tootsmont giving out gimmicks. This guy was from like the Bronx or something. They made him the Minnesota farm boy.
But now see that's
Harlem.
an experience.
He's from Harlem. I looked it up. He's from Harlem.
That's an experience you couldn't pay for. He got his gimmick personally from Toots Mondt, who pretty much invented fucking gimmicks.
Yeah. That may have been one of the last gimmicks he actually came up with, when you think about it.
Well, no wonder, because it didn't go anywhere. Because we didn't even know that this fucking actor was a wrestler until he revealed it 50 years later. It's a closely guarded secret. So I'm surprised it wasn't a Jack Pfeffer.
He was Officer Nicholson on Car 54, Where Are You?
Son of a bitch. But that means he's got to be
93.
I was about to say, he's got to be 90 years old minimum. All right. Well, who knows? It may have been Jack Pfeffer. He might not remember which guy was which.
I don't know.
Because he probably doesn't get enough sleep, Brian.
Why would you say that? Just because of his age?
Well, he's old. He's up probably every 30 minutes going to take a piss.
Well, I'd like to think of it the other way. I think maybe he gets a lot of sleep. He gets so much sleep, he feels good, and he probably needs some support, the right kind of support, the right kind of mattress. Trying to keep this on track early on.
No. I think, see, here's the problem. Problem is that he was screwed around by Toots Mondt. He can't afford. He's been sleeping on soup cans. His last hit was Car 54, Where Are You? That was 1963.
Wasn't his last hit?
There's a holdup in the Bronx. Brooklyn's broken out in fights. There's a traffic jam in Harlem that's backed up to Jackson Heights. Anyway,
there's a scout troop short a child.
Cruise ships do it idlewild.
Car 54, where are
you? All right. Anyway, see, that's why he's sleeping on bags of soup cans in an alleyway, because his last hit was before residuals. So he can't. But you folks that have normal jobs and are vim and vigorous and of youthful trim and energy instead of this 93-year-old guy sleeping on soup cans, you can afford a Helix Sleep mattress because it's cheaper than if you go to the big old mattress store where people have been laying on these mattresses, spreading all their daggum DNA around and the follicles of their skin and then it attaches to you and your clothing when you get on the tester. And oh my God, you should see what happens when the rot sets in. Or you can just go to helixsleep.com right now and just take a nice little quiz. Just tell them what you like. What do you like to sleep on, a hard surface or a soft surface or a medium surface? Or are you cold? Are you hot? The children can get their own mattress from Helix. As a matter of fact, Charles Midget Fischer could have got one of the kids' mattresses, and he probably would have lived longer.
No, first of all, we'll take a step back. First of all, he was an adult, so he probably could have fit on a regular size mattress, even though he was called the midget. But secondly, we can't say that he would have lived longer, but maybe he would have had more comfort during his years.
Well, during his final hours, he could have just drifted off peacefully instead of those horrible screams of pain. Oh my God, when he died, he was sleeping on barbed wire because that's all they had back then.
That's not what they had back then.
And broken glass. Oh my God, it hurts. Oh, I'm gonna die. And then he died.
Again, this nothing to do with the mattress, and the mattress wasn't even there because Helix was just a twinkle in the eye of Mr. Helix and his grandfather and the rest of the Helix family.
A gleam in the eye of his father, as Mama Cornette used to say. But now that there's a helixsleep.com, there's no excuse for you not to go there and get a mattress instead of dying in horrible screaming agony like Charles Midget Fischer. You don't want that to happen, do you?
Again, we don't know how he died. We shouldn't.
Well, do you want to die in any manner that Charles Midget Fischer died? Or do you want to have a great night's sleep? I think I know which one I'm going to choose. I'm going to go over to helixsleep.com and take that quiz and get one of these mattresses delivered to my home And they're not even that hard to move around once you get them in the house. Of course, if you do want to invite the moving men in, have dinner, let them unbox the thing, and all they got to do is take the box cutter and put it where you want it. Then poof, it comes to life. But you can invite strangers into your home. They may put things in their pockets. You don't know. It's very easy to do this yourself, but who am I to judge? Anyway, once it's delivered, it's set up, then you fall right into bed and you're flying among angels. Is suddenly the birds are do 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 do. It's a wonderful morning on the farm. You can even smell the pigs and the cows. So go out and milk them. Don't get any on your new mattress, folks. But anyway, Brian, have you ever milked the cows early in the morning?
I have never milked a cow, no.
You've never milked a cow?
No, we really didn't do that on Long Island too often. There were a lot of dairy farms, but that wasn't something that us kids did for fun.
Well, that's why you were down the road from the dairy farms. You should have got into the dairy life and become a dairy person.
Dairy life.
At the end of the dairy life, where you live on the dairy farm and you milk the dairy cows for the dairy products that are sold in the dairy store. And every morning you wake up and you smell that dairy air. So anyway, folks, you're going to wake up refreshed on your Helix Sleep mattress when you go to helixsleep.com/JCE. You're going to get 20% off and 2 free dream pillows with the mattress purchase. Now, they're not just going to give you 2 free pillows and 20% off unless you buy something. Then when you buy the thing, then they'll give you the 20% off and the 2 free dread. That's a fair trade. Wouldn't you say, Brian? It's a hand-in-hand bargain.
What's a fair trade?
You give them money and they give you 20% off and free pillows.
That sounds like a good deal. I wouldn't call it a trade. I would call it a wonderful deal for a wonderful
that's an
mattress.
Exchange. It's an exchange of one thing for another.
It is a transaction.
Tit for tat.
It's a transaction in order to get a great night's sleep on a great mattress. We love them here. You love them there. The listeners will love them everywhere. Helix Sleep.
Helix Sleep. Quid pro quo. Send them money, they'll send you comfort.
Well, let's just call that a deal. Again, why use these terms that necessarily or that don't necessarily have a good connotation on them?
Because I'm a small town bird lawyer and I'm going to make it sound all complicated.
I thought you said Louisville was a booming metropolis.
They are. Once we try to keep these big city folks out and maintain our small town birds, then I can still be a small town bird lawyer. But again, folks, Helix. Have I said it enough? Sleep on a Helix or don't sleep and just refuse to sleep if you can't get a Helix or you don't have access to it or whatever. I don't know why you wouldn't. They're right there at helixsleep.com/JCE. But go on strike and don't sleep until you get a Helix mattress. Your family at least will thank us for it.
No, they won't. We don't want to encourage anyone to do that. Get a good night's sleep.
It depends on what's in the will.
Get a good night's sleep and know that night's sleep could get even better, even more comfortable. You will love Helix Sleep like I do, like my family does. And let's now get that wonderful promo code from Jim Cornette.
JCE.
HelixSleep.com.
Yes, I said that already.
Well, this is your show.
Well, Brian, before we go any further, I've got breaking news from the real world, and justice has been served apparently down in South Florida, Tamarack, Florida. You've been to Florida in the past. I've seen signs for Tamarack. I'm not sure where Tamarack is. It's probably somewhere in the middle part of the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
South Florida. No, it says South Florida. So it's the southern part of the state. Anyway, I just want to read this because I want you to know how happy these people must be. A family has received closure several years after a frightening incident that took place after a visit to a McDonald's in Tamarack, Florida. The fast food chain was ordered to pay the family $800,000 in damages after their daughter was burned by an unreasonably hot chicken McNugget. unreasonably in quotation marks.
She was burned on her tongue? Where was she burned?
Well, back in 2019, the child's mother, Falana Holmes, purchased Happy
Is that
Meals.
an NXT name? Is that a real person?
Oh, I think it might be a porn name. It is South Florida. Purchased Happy Meals for herself and her then 4-year-old daughter, Olivia Caraballo. So here is a mother purchasing a Happy Meal not only for her child, but for herself. Upon receiving her drive-through order, Holmes handed one of the meals to her daughter. But shortly afterwards, one of the McNuggets, which was said to be, quote, unreasonably and dangerously hot, became stuck in the child's car seat and burned her leg, causing second-degree burns. I have comments on this. Would you like to hear them?
Second-degree burns from a lone chicken nugget against a leg? That's what they're saying?
Well, that's what they're saying. But besides that, this woman has got 2 Happy Meals. She's got a 4-year-old kid in a fucking car seat, and she hands the Happy Meals to the kid. I don't trust Stacy with my bag of fast food that she'll hold it won't turn over and spill my fries. She's giving the meal to her child, and then apparently her child started digging and rooting around in the bag and dropped a nugget on herself. But here's the second part of it that I either don't believe or I'm having considerable consternation with. I haven't gotten a hot chicken McNugget in the last 30 years. How the fuck do they get one hot enough to burn somebody when I can't get one hot enough to it doesn't taste like roofing tile?
I guess you got to get it right away, right out of the drive-through window. That's the secret.
Well, and then apparently this kid hadn't been eating for the past few weeks or whatever because she fucking goes in it like a raccoon invading your vacation cabin's garbage to get this fucking boiling chicken McNugget.
Why are you attacking the kid?
How quick?
It's a Happy Meal. It's a Happy Meal. If I got a Happy Meal when I was a kid, I'm diving in for the toy. I may knock fries and nuggets all over the place.
Well, if it makes you happy, then why does it burn so bad?
Awful.
But then let me just explain to you this, folks. In May, quiet.
No, please explain away. Explain away, please.
This is a frightening incident that happened to these people. In May 2023, a jury found that McDonald's and the franchise owners were at fault for the incident. And in July, a jury was tasked with deciding how much they thought the family should receive in damages of the $15 million the family asked for. They were granted $800,000 by the jury. And the mother said, I'm just actually happy that they listened to Olivia's voice and the jury was able to decide a fair judgment. I'm happy with it. $800,000 for a fucking and a free order chicken nugget and 2 Happy Meals. I'd be happy, but she also expressed her hope that McDonald's will eventually offer some kind of warning for parents when it comes to hot food. I have never been served anything at a fast food restaurant. In the way of food, I can see the hot coffee argument, but in the way of food, have you ever been served anything? Unless you stuck your hand in the deep fryer to pull the fucking French fries out. Have you ever been served anything that would cause you a serious burn?
Again, I've never had McDonald's coffee. I've had hot French fries, but never one that I thought, this is so hot it may burn my skin.
Hopefully, she says, they'll put warning signs on the nugget boxes so parents will know. Hey, parents! The food at McDonald's is cooked. That would cover the whole thing. But nevertheless, that's big news there.
I didn't hear that. That's crazy. What did you think when the coffee thing happened years ago? That was a while ago, obviously. But...
Well, it was nice. There's a footnote here. It was 1994, and it was an elderly woman who was scalded. And when you think about it, you're boiling, in effect, coffee. So, that's like fucking pouring hot water on somebody. If the tops, the lids of these things, that's why I never get drinks and combos, because I have my own drink that I can control rather than their flimsy fucking cups, their ill-fitting tops, and their meager straws.
But with McDonald's, isn't the thing that they actually do Coca-Cola? They're the only ones in the entire world that do it exactly the way Coca-Cola tells you to do it to make it taste perfect?
I don't give a shit. My canned Sprite directly out of my goddamn cooler in the back of my truck when I used to travel and go to fast food places was ice cold and not diluted with whatever local water was being pissed in by raccoons or dumped in by a fucking factory.
All right, you're
there you go.
Bundle of joy today. I guess so. You never thought about getting it on tap at Castle Cornette Sprite?
Well, no, because once again, it's just 3 or 4 flats from the distributor and in my pantry closet there, and I'm fine for a week or two. No reason to get fancy. But speaking of sad things and or depressing items, what is this I hear about Hulk Hogan making children cry, Brian?
Yeah, in the last day or so, a number of people have sent this in. I have a few different things here. Let me click on this article. This is from News 12, The Bronx. Kids were crying.
Does the Bronx have its own television station now?
Well, News 12, The Bronx. That's for Bronx Cable. News 12 is owned by, it used to be Cablevision. Now it's whatever, Optimum. But it was owned by them, so wherever they had Cablevision, you got News 12. And then they tried to make it a big selling point. Like, if you get DirecTV or something, you won't get News 12. But no one gave a shit. But News 12, The Bronx.
Because it's just cable news. Yeah, but go ahead.
It's just a place to eat up a bunch of local Emmys. Like, if you want to do something to boost your ego before you try to make it at NBC or something. But News 12, The Bronx, kids were crying. Hulk Hogan accused of leaving fans stranded at beer tour event in Montgomery.
In Montgomery, Alabama?
I don't think so.
Where Montgomery where?
Montgomery, Orange County, New York.
I didn't even know there was a Montgomery, New York. But the people are stranded there, so now it's getting some attention.
Some disappointed Hulk Hogan fans say they were turned away empty-handed last week after standing in line and waiting for hours for a promised meet and greet with the entertainment icon in Orange County. Orange is one of the colors that Hulk Hogan doesn't have a problem with. Let's hear. We have some audio here from News 12, The Bronx.
Yes, make sure we play these award-winning Emmy artists here.
Let's go to this.
Some disappointed Hulk Hogan fans say that they were turned away empty-handed last week after waiting for hours for a promised meet and greet with the entertainment icon in Orange County. Our Blaze Gomez tells us why from Montgomery, one of the towns that the superstar has toured.
I was there with my son and daughter. It was an exciting day, especially for my son.
A super fan's dream.
They said that, he could only see up to number 200. We were 185.
Turned into a disaster for 42-year-old Robert Taylor and his 2 young kids last Wednesday.
You're the worst. Why did you do that?
Well,
When
hold on, let me
England-
stop it there.
Wait a minute.
Stop
Was that the kids cussing at Hulk Hogan? You're the worst.
It's apparently from the car right after they got turned away. It's the 2 kids in the back seat. I'm guessing the father filming them, giving a message to Hulk Hogan, and that was the 2 kids commenting on that. Jimmy Hart's in these photos, so he was there.
Oh, poor Jimmy again. He's now wherever he appears, he gets residual heat because people are so mad at his balding icon of a friend there. But
I got an idea. We'll get everyone to forget about LA. We'll go on a beer tour. No one will talk about that anymore.
They were only going to see 200 people. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot for a big star, but when you think about it, if he spent a minute with everybody, that'd still be 3.5 hours. I assume he's probably not spending a minute with everybody, but at the same time, you got to expect when you agree to do one of these things, there's going to be a halfway decent sized crowd show up. And maybe, I don't know, with him anymore. So you would think they would be prepared and they wouldn't be just cutting it off like that and leaving everybody hanging. But do go on.
Let's go back to this report from News 12 The Bronx by Blaze Gomez. What a great name that is. Back to the kids upset with Hulk Hogan.
Dad says they waited 4 hours with a promise to see their WWE idol, Hulk Hogan, at ShopRite in Montgomery, only for the superstar to allegedly leave mid-event.
It was really quick. They just stood up, the whole group, and bolted towards the back. Some lady was, pretty upset, screaming and cursing. My son starts, hysterically crying. A bunch of other kids are crying.
Hogan had a busy schedule and didn't just stop here. Hogan toured about a half a dozen locations in the Hudson Valley to promote his new beer brand that looked
Let me pause this for a second because they showed him at another ShopRite, apparently, which is a supermarket chain up here in the Northeast. And then they showed him seemingly serving a barrel of beers to people at a bar. So he was just hitting
a barrel of beers at a bar.
Well, he had a tub of beers, I guess, and he was just walking up to the bar to hand them to people. So apparently he was really hitting all the big locales to promote this beer. Let's go back to this.
Well, but hold on. I was just about to say, it sounded like when they said they waited 4 hours, it sounded like they were running late from the start of the thing. And then somebody just, oh shit, we got to get to another thing. And they just jumped up and took off, leaving these people standing there with Pete in hand. And it sounds like a mismanaged and, behind the 8-ball fucking schedule they had to begin with.
Let's go back to Blaze Gomez, News 12.
wildly successful in these videos he shared.
Today is Hulk Hogan Day.
Dutchess County Executive Sue Serino declared last Tuesday Hulk Hogan Day to commemorate his appearance in Poughkeepsie. But clearly,
And we got
Broke
nothing.
these kids' hearts.
not everyone had a good time.
If he had to leave, maybe he could have walked down that line and at least shook people's hands and said, hey, I'm sorry, we got to get going, rather than just leaving people stranded.
Will you try again if he goes on tour locally?
Probably not.
In Montgomery, Blaze Gomez, News 12.
Thank you, Blaze.
Now, we tried
And
to
now-
reach out to Hogan's publicist about the complaints from Taylor and others, but we have yet to hear back.
All right, well, Hulk Hogan ducking the issue. This major story. You know, it's
Oh,
one
my
guy and his
God.
2 kids, and he's the one who filmed them upset, and then he's the only person talked to in the story. What do you think of all this?
Well, there may be some element of that, but at the same time, it sounds like that they were behind to begin with. They got there. They're going to, if they were supposed to do 200, then they should have, if this guy was 180, whatever the fuck. I never, when I would agree to do an autograph appearance, and I'm not a big star, I just got in the movies here this past week. But I would never say a specific time. It's okay because it's whoever makes the effort to show up, unless, it was advertised for 2:00 and somebody's wandering in at 5:00 and you've just finished and you're packing up, and that's, a different story. But if there's people in line, you need to, accommodate them. Except if you're booked to go and there's fucking 200 people waiting somewhere else that you're supposed to start in an hour and you're 2 hours away or whatever the fuck their deal was. But they should have made some concession for the rest of the people in that line of the 200 they said they were going to see. Free pictures, like the guy said, the handshake or whatever. Because if you promised hungry people a fucking meal and you see a bunch of people eating in front of you while you're standing in line, and then they pull all the fucking food up and tell you, I'm sorry, you're going to be even more pissed because you've been watching the goddamn people eat, right? So if he's been in front of everybody and they've been standing there in line and then they just get up and leave, no wonder even one guy's pissed or whatever. So I would think they would have been able to handle that better, to me.
Do you think Hulk Hogan, even if he's behind schedule, should be a little hypersensitive to things like this, considering he's had so much negative publicity around him and he's trying to launch a new beer brand?
Well, yes, and to say, was that the thing when the kids filed through? They get an autograph picture and a can of fucking hooch from the Hulkster. The kids at the beer thing, Bruno would have never gone for that. They wanted to go with that Bruno beer, and he said, no.
Bruno wouldn't drink wine in a restaurant if there were kids in the restaurant?
Exactly, because he didn't want them to see their hero drinking alcohol. That's why when he turned down the Bruno beer, they gave it to the president's brother in 76.
Hulk Hogan's handing him out. Here.
Yeah, here, take a swig of this. It'll make life much better. But again, you would think that, yes, to answer your question, he would be cognizant somewhat of the negative publicity, but also that his people would, you can't just dangle a guy out there and while you're standing in line or you got fans standing in line, he's out there doing this and suddenly he jumps up when you're supposed to be included. It's, I assume that since this was a promotional tour, I don't know if there was a charge or not. They didn't say one way or the other. But
that would have made it a completely bigger thing, I think. If people paid for it.
That would have made it a bigger thing if they, but if you say you're going to do 200 and you're numbering people, then that gives them the right to be awfully pissed off if they don't get what they're supposed to get.
They must have known they were going to have to leave at a certain point if they all just abruptly got up and left. Do you do something, even if Hogan's not going to get up because of his conditioning? Like he's not good moving around more than he has to.
Well, goddamn, he's not a fucking wheelchair.
No, but he's had a lot of issues with his back and his legs and everything else. He's not someone who should be walking more than he has to, maybe to walk a line. But if you have Jimmy Hart there, do you say like, hey, we're going to have to cut out early. Go work the line a little bit and apologize to people and let them get a picture with you?
Well, wait a minute. Poor Jimmy is left behind in Poughkeepsie or wherever, goddamn, it was Hulk Hogan Day or whatever, when they're going to the next thing. We don't know where they were going, and Jimmy doesn't want to move to fucking New York State, probably. But yes, again, bring the rest of the people up at a group of 30. How many were they short? We don't know, but bring them up in a group and let him stand up, take a group picture and say, hey guys, we're running behind, but I've signed these extra 30 pictures, and talking to Jimmy's megaphone, toot, toot, and just something. And off we go. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience standing in fucking line. You can't just leave while people are standing there staring at you. You know that they're going to get pissed.
Instead, you get 4-year-olds cutting promos on you while they're crying.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate you, Hulk Hogan. He created the next generation of super villains right there. That kid, one of those kids is going to be a super villain, and this is the origin story. This is where his life pivots to serve evil.
Or perhaps a superhero if they're fighting Hulk Hogan.
Well, that's true. The lines are blurred a little bit these days. You never know who's on whose side. And speaking of not knowing who's on whose side, Brian, this might be a segue. Who are they off? Are they on? These crazy star-crossed lovers, CJ and Miro, have reunited, and it feels so good. It must be something about the air in Bolivia Bulgaria, right?
Bulgaria, not Bolivia.
Bulgaria. Well, are they anywhere close?
No.
Well, fuck.
They're
But
nowhere
anyway,
close.
well, alphabetically they are. CJ and Miro have got remiroed or remarried, I should say. After, I don't know what prompted the reconciliation, but we're not revealing any personal news here and violating anybody's space because they sent out a picture. It's been on the Twitter machine and everything. There's a picture of them together, how do they say reciting their, not reciting would be the first time, reciting their vows or doing whatever it is, partaking of the vows of the thing. I've never married the same person twice.
Well, I have an article here. And remember what they said. Their mentor told them they should always be together no matter what if they want to make it in wrestling. CJ Perry, Miro, we renewed our vows.
Renewed.
Kiss and make up after 2023 split. Wrestling stars CJ Perry and Miro are giving love a second chance. The two are back together after initially calling it quits on their marriage over a year ago, and they have already renewed their vows. The couple tells TMZ Sports that they started talking again in June 2024 when Miro, formerly known as Rusev in WWE, returned stateside after visiting his home country of Bulgaria.
Visiting for what, about 9 months?
As the months went by, they slowly continued to rekindle their relationship, with Perry even jetting over to Bulgaria for the Christmas holiday. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, they held a small ceremony at a church in LA and doubled down on their marriage. We're told CJ and Miro are living together, splitting their time between the City of Angels and Bulgaria.
And the city of Bulgaria.
And the darkest city on the planet. The two broke up in the winter of 2023 after tying the knot in July 2016. Miro filed for divorce, but he revoked it on July 31st. While we won't be surprised to see them being all coupley out in public again.
All couple of what? Who is writing this? What outlet is this on?
TMZ.
And they use phrases like all coupley.
Where we'll catch them in the ring next remains to be seen. AEW released Perry in April 2024, while Miro's deal with the organization expired earlier this year, according to reports. Love always wins. And that is the official word, because they leaked it to TMZ. They're the ones who gave it to TMZ and said here. So that's the official word.
TMZ certainly had a lot of dates and details there. And so if he does show back up in the WWE and she is with him, we could assume that they remarried so they could return as a couple, a couple, as they say over there in France.
Here's a question, and again, if every angle about them is dealing with them and it never ends and it never really seems to go wherever they want it to go, I don't know what the problems have been with these things in two different companies now. But if you're bringing them back, do you bring him back as Rusev? Miro is obviously short for his real name. I think it's Miroslav. Do you bring him back as Miro? Has he established himself enough, or is he in the Ricky Saints territory where all of a sudden he has a new name? And do you bring her back as Lana the Russian, or is she... I guess she lost a Russian accent while she was there. What do you think? Do they keep their names that they've been using now outside of WWE, or go back to who they were?
I think, to be honest, the Rusev thing, yes, they've shown in the past that they will, they will recycle these names because he was more over there than he's ever been anywhere else. So I think they would use Rusev rather than Miro, because I laughed when you said he's established himself as what? A fucking missing person? Right now he's established as that guy that we haven't seen in a long fucking time. I don't think they need her. And I don't think that they ought to, anything done with him and her together has been blech, with an emphasis on the. So I would, if I was them, I'd say we want this big Bulgarian that can pass for a Russian. Because, even though they're now allies of the United States government, the people of America don't really like the Russians. So I think they'd want him and make him a beast or a monster, whatever the fuck. I don't see why anything that they have done together with each other is in any way entertaining rather than confusing. So I don't know why. And they've got a bunch of girls that are better workers because we haven't seen her work. I don't know if she does.
She did eventually. Yeah. Remember she got powerbombed through a table 10 weeks in a row or something on Raw. We weren't watching Raw, but we heard about that.
Whatever obviously they thought a lot of her. I'm sure that the field has blown past her at this point. So I don't know why they'd be interested in her.
See, they were good together early on when they first came up, but I just don't think he could ever get over past her when they're together. The story always becomes about her. And she was really good as Lana the Russian. And it was all about her coming on the stage wearing a tight dress and turning around slowly and looking at people. And then here's the monster that's with her. And then the stuff with her and Lashley. And then in AEW, on his own, once you got him past Kip Sabian too, he started getting over. Like when he was TNT champion, that was good stuff from him. And then they took the belt off him. And we barely ever saw him ever again, except for the CJ stuff and the promos about God that he did for weeks and weeks and weeks, where he was ranting about God and then God never booked him. I really don't know what happened.
So yeah, we wish them the best in their future endeavors as a star-crossed set of lovers navigating this big blue marble in the fucking universe. Or something like that.
Coming soon to a WWE near you.
So, should we talk about the Black history lesson that we have to give the people at BET, which stands for Black Entertainment Television, except it's a website now too? Have you seen this, Brian? The list of the 15 best Black pro wrestlers.
I've heard there was something going around. I have not seen it. Is that what it is? It's the 15 best?
Well, see, that was the thing. It went around on Twitter yesterday, and I was seeing it, and I looked at it, I said, oh, what the fuck? And then I said, but, because I didn't see the actual article itself. I saw the people talking about the list, right? And I said, well, maybe it's the 15 best, since 2005 or whatever the fuck. But I go to the article on BET.com and it says, from The Rock to Bianca Belair, the 15 greatest Black wrestlers ever. And ever, as we know, is a very long time. But now they have, and it says explore WWE, AEW, and wrestling history. Through the careers of, and names a few people and more barrier-breaking icons who dominated championships and shaped pop culture. Big graphic 15 best Black pro wrestlers. Would you like to hear this list and imagine who, your top 5 would be, or just people that would be on this?
That's what I'm thinking about now. Like I'm weighing someone like Bobo Brazil. Would he be on my list of the 15 best? Or the 15 biggest, the 15 greatest?
Well, no, this is the 15 greatest Black wrestlers ever. Now, obviously, it's BET. We're not talking about work rate like Uncle Dave, the star ratings.
And we're just talking about as a wrestler, not influence. Like Ernie Ladd wouldn't get any credit for booking or anything. It would just be his wrestling career.
No, just the people in the ring.
Okay.
Number 15, Jazz.
Number
now, I know.
Ever?
Go ahead.
Ever?
Well, that's what the headline says. 15 greatest Black wrestlers ever. And
nothing personal.
Jazz is a friend of mine. And I like her. And, I'm not sure about that. The 15, and this is, by the way, this is both the male and the female genders. Number 15 was Jazz. Number 14, Shelton Benjamin. Again, I'm not arguing with the quality of it. And, when you sit down and make a list, he very well might be on it. But number 13, Brian, Naomi.
Oh, come on. Now it's, how can I take this? I don't even know where you're going, and this is...
Yeah, well, I'm going where they're taking me. You don't think I'm blazing this trail on my own, do you? I ain't making this up.
I'm sitting here writing down names of people that clearly you're not going to name on this list.
Number 12,
Dory
Jacqueline.
Dixon. Dory Dixon, right?
No. Jacqueline, Miss Texas. Jackie Moore, love her to death too.
She might be in the 15 greatest African American women wrestlers of all time, I would definitely put her on that
yeah.
list.
Well, now, if you
if it was broken up to
qualifier
male
on
and women, absolutely I'd put her on there, I think.
there you go. And I would more than agree with you. Number 11, Big E. Big E, everybody. Big E.
Other than Jackie, have you named anyone who wrestled before the 80s?
Well, hold on here.
Okay.
Because it gives the year they debuted. Jazz debuted in 1998, Shelton in 2000, Naomi in 2009, Jacqueline in 1989.
See, there you go.
Big E 2009, and number 10, Devon Dudley. He wrestled from 1991 to 2020.
This list is all over the place. Where's Luther Lindsay on the list?
Hold on. We've got 9 more. We got 9 more.
Jim Mitchell. I'm waiting for the Black Panther. We're talking about influence. Waiting for the Black Panther.
Well, you mentioned Bobo Brazil and Ernie Ladd. Have you talked about Abdullah the Butcher or Bearcat Wright?
Yeah.
Was there a time in 1962, 1-2, Chicago, etc., with Bearcat Wright drawing 25,000, 30,000 people? A couple of those main event world title matches. He was in the top 10, I would think, box office attractions in the entire business that year, whatever color. But number 9, Bianca Belair. Belair.
Again, if it was the 15 greatest African-American women wrestlers of all time, 100% I'd put her on that list. And she may place pretty high. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's great. But of all time ever, and we've already skipped, again, I'm expecting, is Junkyard Dog on the list?
Well, hold on. Let's see. And by the way, I agree with you on the women's list for Bianca.
Yeah.
Number 8, Bobby Lashley. He's done well as a box office attraction. He was a champion. I could see an argument for him being in the top 15 African-American men of all time.
Yeah, I could see that argument too, because again, the WrestleMania with him, even though it had Trump and Vince, it was him against Umaga, and that was the biggest drawing, the record pay-per-view crowd, whatever it was, for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And he was in the main event, and he's always been kind of slotted towards the upper card ever since, and he did a lot of MMA, took a lot of breaks. But 15, it's not outrageous for Bobby Lashley, no.
Number 7, Ron Simmons. And that's actually not
crazy.
Ridiculous either. That's not crazy. In a couple different companies. Number 6.
Butch Reed.
Okay.
Butch Reed.
No. Junkyard Dog. Now you got the dog. They have to include the dog because the dog is still talked about so much by modern wrestlers. So they have to talk about the dog. He was active from 1977 to 1993. But we got one of the people that you were thinking about, but we got 5 more. Are you ready, Brian?
No.
Number 5, Mercedes Moon.
Oh, come on. Of all time, this list is ridiculous.
And they are ranking the with numbers. So apparently, and we're going 15-1, and we're at number 5. At number 5, Sasha Banks / Mercedes Moon. Yeah. The boss, Sasha Banks, is the face of black female wrestling worldwide. So
more than Bianca?
Well, that's what it says here. The face of the revolution for the women's side of the game.
Revolution?
Her historic main event with Bianca Belair would be the only time 2 black women faced off at WrestleMania in the promotion's history. And it was also one of the most perfectly executed matches I've ever seen. So you can tell that whoever writes this for BET is one of those.
I remember it being a good match, but again, I see Bianca as more of a candidate for like a top 15, like placing high in it of black women wrestlers than I do Sasha Banks, to be quite honest.
Anyway, back to number 4, the top 4. Number 4, Mark Henry.
Oh, I didn't even think of Mark Henry. Yeah, interesting.
I got to be honest with you, in terms of longevity and being used in a top spot for much of that, despite his rocky start that we've talked about. Yeah, again, if you made a list, I mean, this could be debated, but it's not out of place. But number 3, Kofi Kingston.
Oh, come on. Of all time, get out of here. This is ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, and then we go to the top 2, baby. Number 2, The Rock. The final boss. What do you think, Brian?
I think he would have to be near the top if we're talking about best, most famous, most successful. If he's not I'm surprised he wasn't number 1, to be honest with you.
Well, but after some of the other quotes from this author, I'm not. Matter of fact, let me see if I can get a byline on this before we go to number 1. By Tyler Tynes, and it's a guy who's apparently obsessed with Mercedes and that type of thing. But anyway, The Rock is number 2. And yes, but now does he only get half credit? Should that be mitigated? He's part Samoan. Should he be half on the Samoan list and half on the African American list?
He's not African American. He's Canadian.
That's right. And there's an asterisk too.
Yeah.
So he is 50% Samoan and 50% Afro-Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would be on the list of, I think he would be on the list. I wouldn't put Rocky Johnson on the list.
Well, but there's something else. The Rock is on his father, Rocky Johnson. In terms of, and I know personal feelings aside, but then we'd have to do a background check on all these people, and some of them we don't know. But in terms of longevity in the business, main event positioning, and box office, Rocky Johnson probably needs to be in top 15.
There's a few people. I'm going to guess none of them are going to be number 1. I wrote Dory Dixon. I said some of these. Luther Lindsay, Butch Reed, Tony Atlas could be considered on the list by some. Sailor Art Thomas.
I had Art Thomas. Coco Ware, if you go by until he became the Birdman and got fat and lazy.
It probably wouldn't be looked at as a gimmick worth embracing maybe, but Kamala, technically, if you're going on success in places he worked and main evented, if you were going by the territories, then you really open it up. Bearcat Brown, Shag Thomas, lots of people that were actually pretty big local sports stars for a good period of time. But again, I'm trying to think who they did not name yet.
I guarantee you Bearcat Brown sold more tickets than fucking Mercedes Moon ever has.
Who's number 1?
But number 1, you've said everybody but this man, Booker T. Booker T, number 1, and lists all the titles. He has won a lot of fucking championships. But he was active from 1989 to 2012. So he kind of spanned 2 of those generations there. But
I would definitely put Booker T in the top 15. His inclusion there, I wouldn't make him number 1, but I do think he's deserving clearly of being in the top 15. A few of the names there, Ron Simmons, there were JYD, obviously, but you can't say it's ever when clearly there's a starting point to the history they used because it ignored. I mean, if Ernie Ladd's not on the list.
Yeah, well, it's bullshit to begin with, but also now that you look at that with those names that you mentioned, and Abdullah, Ernie Ladd, Bobo Brazil, Bearcat Wright, Art Thomas, Dory Dixon, and on, all the names that we've just said, and some of the people from this list, you've got more than 15, then we'd have to start narrowing it down. But anyway, BET needs the Black History lesson, or maybe just Tyler Tynes. Maybe he's just 25 years old and he doesn't know shit from apple butter
Well,
yet.
you know what? The other thing is, beyond some of the work of John Cosper, who documented the life and career of Jim Mitchell, the Black Panther, there aren't too many books, I mean, at least that I know of, and I have a lot of wrestling books, about the real history of wrestling for Black wrestlers. You know, who was going where, some of the names. Everyone knows Bobo Brazil because it's a classic name. It's a name that transcends wrestling. It just sounds like a great name.
Yeah.
But there are lots of other big stars that are almost forgotten today, and it's a shame.
So, you know, Sailor Art Thomas, because I got to see him in the waning days or years of his career because he worked for Bruiser in Indianapolis.
What kind of shape was he in at that point? He had the best physique of anyone I've ever seen. That I don't think he was on steroids, but based on the time period, best physique ever.
Yeah, no, he was 50 years old and he still had the big arms and the big chest. And that was the deal. His finish was the bear hug and he would break the full Nelson. And, you know, but he was a rotten worker. I don't think it was even because he was 50 years old. I don't think he was very good ever, but he looked so good and he was over and he drew money. And fortunately, by the late 50s, they had settled on Sailor Art Thomas instead of his original name, Seaman Art Thomas, which just, you know, to me was, as you got into the 60s, was just opening him up for abuse that he shouldn't have had to take. But anyway, that's the list, Brian, there on the BET network online or whatever. The greatest ever. Oh, the children. Speaking of children, I understand that Uncle Dave has told his children, the sheep that follow in his flock, what they should have thought about the pay-per-view matches again.
Well, Jim, indeed, I have here the star ratings from the new Wrestling Observer newsletter covering AEW Revolution, which we just talked about previously on the last show.
Boy, howdy did we, at great length. And I don't expect at this point that Uncle Dave is ever going to see eye to eye with, I don't know, facts, logic, or, you know, visual, what's in front of his face like we do. But is he in any way trying to indicate to these people, you've jumped the shark, shit the bed, and gone too far, and this was a mess, and can you rein it the fuck in? Or is he just saying everything was 5 stars, and the greatest thing that we've ever seen again, every time? Let me ask you this, Brian, before you tell me these numbers.
Yeah, please.
They rate numerically, they quantify, they grade the high dive in the Olympics. That's another impressive stunt, like, you know, the AEW wrestlers do. But you get, like, I think 3 tries, right? And then they use your best one or with a cumulative score or whatever, but you don't get to go up there and just jump off that thing all day.
Right.
Now, what would happen if they changed the grading to where you get like 25 dives and you just keep going up there and jumping off and going up there and jumping off, and 3 of them are really fucking beautiful, and another 4 or 5, that brings us up to 8. Well, those looked great. And then the next 6, they kind of looked the same. And then he started getting tired. He started getting sloppy. And there was 3 or 4 in there that just fucking sucked. But overall, I give it 5 stars because the ones at the start looked good. Is this that logic? Is it just if you are allowed to do everything you can possibly do until the brink of exhaustion, I'll grade it high just because you did a lot of shit? Or does it have to be that all the shit that you do is at a high level of professionalism?
Well, let me just say in advance of giving you the actual star ratings here, There was some audio that went around this week. One of the accounts, like Meltzer said what, or if it wasn't him, it was one of the other, Meltzer shits poo or whatever the fuck's going on out there.
Meltzer shits poo. I think they suspended that account.
But one of them had audio from, I guess, one of the shows they have over there. And it was all about, I guess it was all the people that go to his house for pay-per-views. And it was about his reactions to stuff and how he loses his mind for the Will Ospreay stuff. They were all laughing about how Dave is over the top when Will Ospreay's in the ring. So let's go to the star ratings here. In order, Hangman Adam Page defeated MJF, 4.5 stars.
Okay. I'm not surprised because I know what he does. And that would make it with some of the rank right up there with some of the premier matches of all time in the wrestling business. And I don't think it was, but at least nobody took an axe to anybody, or I don't think there was any power tools in that one. So, okay.
Well, Jim, the next match, Mercedes Moné versus Momo Watanabe, 4.25 stars.
Oh, come on. Brian, you're more tolerant than I am. And even you said it was a grim situation in some parts there. Is it just because, okay, well now, but she's Japanese and she, must be good because she was trained by Margaret Cho or whatever that other girl's name is.
I believe you're speaking of Emi Sakura, but let's go back.
No, Freddie Mercury.
And by the way, I skipped past the pre-show. Let me just do that quickly. Hologram and Commander defeated Lee Johnson and Blake Christian, 9 minutes, 53 seconds, 4 stars.
What? Wait, what? God.
4 stars. It's a wonderful way to open the show, obviously.
Oh,
Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Adam Cole.
So that the opening of the pre-show with 2 people we've never heard of against 2 miscellaneous masked children was the equivalent of a Flair and Steamboat match. I got you.
Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Adam Cole, and Daniel Garcia defeated Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, and the Infantry, 9 minutes, 36 seconds, 3 stars.
Oh, that must have sucked balls.
Oh, let me read this because this is what I missed and I was trying to figure out exactly what happened. Chris Jericho was to face Gravity for the ROH title. Jericho hit him in the head with a bat and was beating on him. Bandito tried to make the save for his brother. Oh, they're brothers? I didn't know that. Gravity and Bandito are brothers. But Big Bill and Brian Keith were beating on him. Jericho beat on Bandito with his bat. Bandito's mother and sister were shown in the crowd in tears. They did a great job of pulling that off. Jericho unmasked Gravity. The unmasking got far more heat than anything, even more than threatening the women.
and we also managed to take a goddamn stick to a couple of children to see what they thought about that too, but they went with the unmasking.
Jericho continued to work them over and hit the Judas effect on Gravity. The mother and sister ended up in the ring. Jericho threatened them, and Bandito tried to protect them and got kicked in the face. The next match, Jim, Big Boom AJ and Mark Briscoe and Pockets versus the MXM Collection, who are called now Mason Madden and Mansoor, that was his name over there, and Johnny TV, 12 minutes, 54 seconds, 2 stars. 2 stars for this match.
Good Lord, what did they do? Have explosive projectile diarrhea in the middle of the ring?
And by the way, for MJF versus Adam Page, here's what Dave wrote. Page cut his hair and looks like 1969 Les Thatcher. But Jim, the next match on the show, Swerve Strickland defeated Ricochet, 18 minutes, 9 seconds, 4 3/4 stars.
Okay. He's being very appreciative of people's feelings here again this week.
Kazuchika Okada beat Brody King in 11 minutes, 44 seconds.
All right, here's the fucking test. Can he open his eyes to what he is looking at and say something to the effect of, it's so sad what Okada has become and how that he just is either incapable of it anymore or doesn't give a shit and is milking the guy for money and being lazy. What does he say here?
3 3/4 stars.
Well, I hate to say it, but that's almost the same thing, isn't it? When he only 3 3/4. That would only have been approaching excellence in a prior generation. Did he have any comment about, Okada's lack of life?
No. King chopped the hell out of Okada. He ended up with his chest all bruised and his biceps all bruised. King missed a charge, went to a barricade. Okada used the DDT. King did more hard chops and elbows. King did a top rope superplex and an elbow suicida. Okada's chest was brutalized by this point. King did a running crossbody on Okada on the barricade. Okada did the elbow off the top. It just keeps running through actually what happened.
It reads much better than it was, doesn't it?
Let's go to the next match. Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley defeated the Outrunners. 8 minutes, 37 seconds. 1.5 stars.
Okay. I got to be honest with you that nobody was either arrested mid-match or carried out in an ambulance on this scale should get 2 stars at least.
Arrested mid-match?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be... It would have to be something really disruptive and totally unacceptable on this scale to, again, that, nobody's fucking sphincter fell out and prolapsed in the middle of the fucking match. So I don't think it was that bad. I mean, at least they were able to, the right team won. They didn't fuck up the finish and accidentally lose. So there you go.
Well, here's what Dave wrote. It's actually interesting. This was a bad mix for a lot of reasons. First, the Hurt Syndicate are total baby faces to this crowd, so the dynamic of the Outrunners being underdogs you wanted to see win doesn't work. Or didn't work, he wrote here.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think the Hurt Business or the Hurt Syndicate, when you see them, do you think they're baby faces?
Well, that's simplifying it for the sake of the statement. They are not baby faces. They are heels, but the people love them because they are a level above in appearance and professionalism and performance what they're seeing on the rest of the card. They're either tired of all of the stupid things they have seen a lot of these other guys do that have been there for a while, and there's nobody new that particularly, except for Osprey, is newish. They don't give a fuck about Okada, I don't think, anymore. The people that are there will cheer for him if they happen to be there and he's there, but he ain't bringing anybody in. The Hurt Syndicate haven't done anything stupid. They haven't been silly. They haven't been phony. They're good at what they do. They beat people up. MVP is a good talker. So the reason why that they're baby faces in response from the crowd, even if not indeed in the ring, is 2 reasons. Number one, this is not only a smart crowd, but it's a smart ass crowd. And they like to show how smart they are, and they're cheering for the people that are the biggest stars on the program. And secondly, there's no baby faces that have anybody behind them to the level that you would want people to be behind your top baby face so that they can you think of maybe if the Hurt Syndicate beat up Kenny, half the people would probably still like him. Maybe if they beat up Osprey, 40% of the people might still like him, whatever. The baby faces are not baby faces because they're either phony, goofy, ineffectual, or they've been around too long and are stale.
Let's go to the next match, Jim. Toni Storm defeated Mariah May. Hollywood ending match. 12 minutes, 56 seconds. Falls count anywhere. 5-star match.
And I'm sure he did the classic disclaimer about, well, I don't care for this type of thing, but it was wonderful.
I'm not seeing that. I thought the same thing after the pin. Oh, here it is. I'm not a fan of this stuff with men or with women, but they had what is likely, if AEW presents its history right, with their all-time classic women's match. There have been a few better wrestled women's matches in the US, but this reached a level none of the others did, partially due to the storyline, and more due to the blood and violence and storyline.
Oh my God.
Jim, go ahead.
If he's not a fan of this type of thing, then did Rex Reed or Siskel and Ebert rate movies based not on what they thought of them, but what that they thought other movie-going fans thought of them?
I didn't like the movie, but enough of you told me I should put my thumbs up, so 2 thumbs up.
And it's, again, this is why that a lot of these young people, not only on young people on both sides of the fucking camera and in both sides of the seats and the ring, that buy into this indie style of wrestling that Dave has championed in this Japanese history that he's made up in large part about how great all the Japanese matches have been consistently for the past. He lies about that just like he lies about America because he refuses to see through the fucking fake, phony bullshit that people have. He thinks it's progress if you don't learn to like the phony bullshit and the ridiculous, preposterous, unbelievable fucking stunts they do, and the lack of technique they exhibit in any of the art of wrestling while they're beating each other with blunt instruments. That's the problem, is that some of these people think that that's what wrestling is supposed to be because he says these things. And some of these people are trying to wrestle like that because he says these things.
Well, Jim, the next match, Kenny Omega defeated Konosuke Takeshita, international title, 28 minutes, 29 seconds.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. If he gave girls 5 stars, he can't hurt Kenny's feelings because Kenny's his guy. So as this has got to be 5 or 5.5.
5-star match.
Okay.
Will Ospreay defeated Kyle Fletcher in a cage match.
Well, now, wait a minute.
28 minutes, 56 seconds.
And by the way, they were almost both exactly the same time, way too fucking long.
Yeah.
If Willie and Kyle are out there in a cage match and he gave Kenny and the girls 5 stars, he's got to give them 5.5, doesn't he?
5-star match. So 3 5-star matches in a row, according to Dave Meltzer. Finally, Jon Moxley, the way it says it here, retained his title in a 3-way over Adam Copeland and Christian. I guess that is what it was at the end.
Technically, at the end there. Okay, now wait a minute.
26 minutes, 31 seconds.
Let's just pump the brakes here. Because there has to be some honesty displayed here because too many people pointed out the suckiness and the stinkiness of this. So what does he have to say for himself here?
3.25 stars.
Whoa! That's the same thing as a kick in the balls on this scale, I guess. That it used to be pretty damn good and right under the belly of excellent, but now it's like, oh, he's sending them a message. Remember when he used to give shit duds?
Yeah.
Do you remember the duds? There was a
negative
dud
stars
for
and
years.
duds. That's right.
Negative stars on some things and duds for when he didn't want to be comedic about the negative stars. Now the shit that stinks only gets 2 or 2.5.
There was audio last week going around of him. Again, it was like 10 seconds. And it was just saying, I guess, in advance of this match, Jon Moxley never has a bad match. Adam Copeland never has a bad match. And it's like, if you think that after watching either one of those two guys for the last 5 years, you're out of your mind. And then they had a bad match, and he gave it 3.25 stars. So that was AEW Revolution in the stars.
You know, Brian,
Oh, I know.
what you've just said makes me want to take a razor to my throat.
Well, no, let's not say that.
Well, it does, because I'm feeling unkempt. I feel like Uncle Dave looks unkempt and confused, sitting on his front porch, giving all the young kids good ratings so they'll play in his yard so that he can stare at them and stare wistfully at his bygone youth. But meanwhile, I just want to shave and look neat, right? No sense in looking unkempt when you become a senior citizen, Brian, but all people of all ages should be neat and clean and shaved and groomed and smelling good like a New Orleans whorehouse in the summertime, don't you think?
Well, that may not be the pleasant smell people want, and I think even if you have facial hair, you may want to groom what you have and make it look a certain way or clean it up. And we know someone, whether you want to take it all off your face or just leave a little bit there and stylize yourself, whatever it may be, our friend Harry is there for you.
Harry's is the Harry's.com, and there's no apostrophe. And by the way, how do you know what a New Orleans whorehouse smells like in the summertime?
Well,
you can smell it a ways down the road, I'll tell you that. But folks, they'll be able to smell you a ways down the road. If you're using the products from Harry's, they smell good. It's like, they smell good. Hey!
Okay, I don't know what the hell that was, but no, let's not say you're going to smell miles down the road.
I smell good. Well, it depends on which way the wind is blowing now. But if the wind is at your back,
yeah,
they're going to smell you coming, and they're going to say, well, what in the world? It smells like Purdy flowers, or it smells like a manly man who's had a premium body wash and hair gel and deodorant experience from our friends over at Harry's.
That's what it smells like? That's what they're going to say?
That's what people, and if you walk up one side of the street and down the other side of the street, you'll have people confused where you'll just see them, especially the women, they'll just be wandering around in the middle of the street sniffing with their noses up in the air. So, somebody's on Harry's.
Again, first of all, they wouldn't say they're on Harry's. Second of all, this scenario is not promised in any way.
Have you had a swig of their special skin lotion?
Once again, swig meaning applying it to the skin. Let's make sure we're clear about that. Let's make sure we're clear about maybe the women are reacting because of the visage. Maybe they see your face all clean and down to the skin and bones because of Harry's.
Well, what it is they put some of the hormones and pheromones into this lotion. It drives the women wild.
You can't promise that. You can't promise that.
I've walked past people after using Harry's, and they've suddenly taken their underwear off and started throwing them at me.
What?
Yeah, of course, there was shit in the crotch, but nevertheless, folks, again.
It has nothing to do with Harry's. Let's just stress that has nothing to do with Harry's.
Well, our friends at Harry's have a fine line of products for shaving is the big thing with Harry's. They've got the $13 trial set right now you can get for $3 at harrys.com/JCE. That's our exclusive link for the $3 deal on the trial set. Comes with the razor handle, the ergonomically designed, the weighted, the balanced. But boy, I tell you what, they balance this thing like the sight on a sniper rifle. So boy, you can get every last whisker, boom, and it's amazing when you can hold it in between your thumb and your middle finger and just run it around your face. And it comes with a 5-blade razor cartridge, which is sharper than a serpent's tooth and engineered in a German factory from German officers with whips on the assembly line, people.
No, there's no. The people who make these are happy people.
Down.
These are made by happy people, and they are happy razors. Happy Harry delivering razors to you. Harry.
Happy Harry, the razor guy. Well, the people, they're happy when they have made the razor and they get to go home and come back another day. And that's why they stay sharp longer, folks. These people take pride in saving their lives by doing a good job.
They take pride. That is not the reason why.
And there's customizable delivery options if you want to continue. Oh, and you get the foaming shave gel in the trial kit also. The blade, the razor handle, and the shave gel, and a travel cover, $3. And then if you like what you get,
it's a good deal.
And you see that how this hair just melts off your face with these fine quality razors, then you can schedule refills as low as $2. You don't have to go to the store and pry that. You know, it makes me mad that I got to take a special tool in to the grocery store to pry that security thing off just to be able to shoplift a few measly razor cartridges. Does that happen to you?
No. Again, I get my razor cartridges from Harry's.
Well, I do now, but I used to, and I'm sure it used to happen to you that, you know, you have to.
Before Harry's, I didn't shave. I didn't shave for years before Harry's, and then.
Well, you have to disguise that tool in your pocket, and you walk all straight-legged till you can pry that security thing off and then stick it in somebody's baby buggy, where when it goes off and the people are chasing the kid in the baby buggy, you can make it out the other side. But
they got cameras everywhere. You would never get away with such a thing.
Well, that's first you need to disable the cameras, but in your other pocket.
They're chasing the baby buggy. Is the baby buggy driving on its own? Is there a mother pushing the baby buggy?
No, the mother is pushing the baby buggy, running down the street to keep her baby away from these people that are chasing her because there's an alarm going off. Well, meanwhile, on the other side of the store, I've taken a can of black spray paint in and sprayed the lenses on the security cameras. I can get out with the... Or you can just go to Harry's.
Just go to Harry's. You won't have to do any of this or think about it.
You won't have to do any of these things, folks. Again, the 13, it saves on paint right there. The $13 trial set will be just $3 when you go to harrys.com/JCE. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's, or cope with your shave at Harry's.
Ah, that was good.
See there, $13 trial set for $3, harrys.com/JCE. And then they've got the body wash and the amazing smelling deodorant. It's only $5. You will smell
like Sexton Hardcastle.
Like Sexton Hardcastle for only $5.
That's right. Once again, Harry's, great razors. We got them here in the house. Jim, I know, has Harry's over there, and you should have it too.
I've got one to my neck right now. I'm going right up over my chin there, and you can see it. So, boy, you don't even have to use shaving gel.
Well, you should. You probably should.
Just shave it dry.
Well, why don't you use the shaving gel and protect your skin? And Harry's is there for you, and Harry's wants you to have a great face that you'll love. Harry's, promo code and website, Jim, without anything else that will get us in trouble.
Any editorial comments, harrys.com/JCE. If they want you to have a better face, they need to pay for some plastic surgery for many people.
Great razors, and they support the show. Support them. Harry's, JCE.
harrys.com/JCE. No apostrophe now. Damn you if you put an apostrophe in there. All righty. Well, what in the world are you doing over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this fine week?
Oh, it's one of those weeks where I wasn't prepared because I thought we were taking a break, but it's a great week of shows on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, each and every day you can rely on the wrestling news. No paywall, no clickbait. Just wrestling news, no opinion, no star ratings, just the wrestling news. Get it directly from thewrestlingnews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News. Of course, check out Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam and Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. Wherever you find your favorite podcast, the latest episodes are out now. And I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't have everything in front of me right now. But the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! I was in the red on that one. Go through the archive, 605pod.com. Sorry, Jace Nacarado, or Yeah, that's it.
Is that his nickname now? Sorry, Jace?
Sorry, Jace Nakarado. No. Sorry to Jace Nakarado for the screaming. 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The Mothership.
Well, Brian, now it's the time that some of us may have been waiting on. We've got to talk about the offering from AEW this past Wednesday night, you leave that in if you want, Jace. The 12th of March is the 12th of That's the response I've had ever since I watched this television show. It gave me the sour belches, and I've not been able to recuperate because I don't know what they're doing now. Because this is just, it's like they just said, oh, shit, we got to do something to fill this time up. Let's do this. And the same amount of people are going to watch it. I think they've got to be down to the nub at this point. I'm sure they'll do about their same average, but I have to think this is going to be another one of those slalom shows where they lose people off the edge at the end. But Brian, are you happy we got some more tournaments coming up?
When they announced that, I groaned. But I mean, I knew we had the Owen Hart tournament coming up. And we know we have the Continental at the end of the year.
But that doesn't take into account the Dynasty Eliminator tournament.
Yeah, wild card. Tony thought of another tournament. And this tournament's a stupid tournament. It's not even a standard tournament. It's a stupid tournament.
Well, if we're going to talk stupid, let's get the head honcho of Stupid Incorporated out here. The first thing we saw was Kenny. Kenny came out, Twinkle Toes McFingerbang in his baggy shorts, sleeveless t-shirt, and fluorescent tennis shoes. And I'm saying that with he's got this grand entrance music, and then when he's wrestling, he wears these grand outfits, and it's overdone to the dramatic extreme. But when he comes out to do an interview, he's just dressed like some parking attendant, and he looks like kind of like maybe some kid's soccer coach going around greeting the parents on the way to the ring. It's so blasé and lackadaisical. Hi, and he's smiling and waving. He'll sign an autograph.
Kid's soccer coach.
Well, I mean, well, look at him. What? You're getting mixed messages with the presentation and the visual. But anyway, and then I said, oh, he's going to talk. And he talked. He's in a dream state. He's not only back, but with all your support. I'm back with a singles title. And of course, it took him a minute and a half to say all that. There was a lot of branching off. And he thanked the breathy, nonchalant voice and meandering conversational style. He thanked Take a Shit for pushing him. And I don't think he's an exciting personality. I think he's a kind of a just bleh. But he said Tony Khan had an idea for the Dynasty Eliminator tournament, and Kenny likes it because whoever holds that belt, and that he's talking about the belt that he has, which is the international title, right?
That is correct.
Whoever
Okada has the Continental, and they'll probably merge them.
Yeah, and then it would be the Intercontinental title. Whoever holds the international title should be the best wrestler on the planet. The world champion would like a word, but nevertheless, he said, I want to face the best because the person who holds this belt should be the best in the world. So then he bid us adieu, blew us a kiss, and said good night and bang. And he left the ring there. By the way, did I mention that him speaking could put a meth addict to sleep? But Brian, here is the Dynasty International Championship Eliminator Tournament field to determine who the best wrestler in the world is. You want to hear who's in this tournament?
Let's hear it.
Hechicero, Hechicero. Hechichero's in it. Our little dog pockets. Frank the Beast Mortis. A wild card. Shapoopy. Shapoopy's in the tournament to determine the best. Ricochet. Mark Briscoe. And Mark Davis. The winner of that tournament will face Kenny. So do we want to see Kenny versus Mark Davis? Do we want to see Kenny versus Mark Briscoe at this point? Might be the best Kenny match that we could see.
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
But is that a pay-per-view championship match for the best in the world? Shapoopy?
No.
Frank the Beast Mortis? Hechicero? Pockets?
No.
It's down to Ricochet, and then there's Wild Card. More on that in a moment. I think Ricochet has to win this thing, doesn't he? Because he's both a heel and a gymnast that Kenny can vault with.
Well, unless they want to really do everything they can to get Wild Card over, they may have him win. Kind of a hell of a way to debut in AEW. Wild Card wins, and I mean, you would think either Ricochet or you mentioned another name, and I don't even know. Oh, the Beast Mortos. Actually, I want to see Omega versus the Beast Mortos. I want to see what that's going to be like, but I don't think that's going to be the main event either, or the final, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, Kenny is leaving, and on the way out and coming out of the entranceway to meet him are the Ops. Samoa Joe, Shapoopy, and Hook. And of the three of them, the one to go stare down at Kenny is not Samoa Joe, but it's Shapoopy. Now you're going to say, why is anybody staring Kenny down? Because they're all baby faces. That's why it doesn't make any fucking sense. But you've got Samoa Joe teamed up with Hook and Shapoopy having random six-mans with jobbers that make funny faces when you need top stars. What the fuck is going? And Joe was the last world champion before they dropped it to MJF and everything started going to fucking hell when everybody started getting hurt and fucking meandering around.
I mean, style-wise, Kenny Omega maybe doesn't want to have a physical match like he would with Joe. It'd be different. I mean, not that his matches aren't physical. It looks like he's always going to hurt himself. But with Joe, it may be a different animal. I don't know.
Well, goddamn, then just put Joe over for the belt and be on your way. They need top talent and singles guys that people can fucking believe in and get behind. And they were with Joe until that was whatever the fuck happened. Didn't he? They said he was going to make a movie. He was gone for fucking 9 months or whatever.
What do you think of the Ops as a group? A group with
What
shirts, a group that's put together that you see walk out there and you see the visual. What do you think?
No. Hook may be a fine young man. He ain't ready to be teamed up with a top guy like Joe. Shibata, please. In any lifetime in this country, he's not going to make a shit bit of difference to anything. And the Ops, the tag team fucking partners are next door neighbors of the Gumps. I mean, what the fuck? And they did have a match with 3 jobbers that made funny faces, and they beat them in 2 minutes. And the one that got the win was a kick by Shapoopy. And then the fans started chanting, Joe, Joe, Joe. Because he's the only one they give a shit about in this whole fucking thing. And Ricochet was in the back having a promo about the tournament match on Saturday he's going to have with Shapoopy. And there was a lot of talking, especially in the back on this show. Swerve was talking in the back about the world title, but then Edge came in to say he might win the title first. so Swerve could face him. So let's confuse the issue further because I don't think anybody wants to see what they've advertised. Let's give them a bunch of what ifs and see if that sticks.
Did you see they announced Cope versus Moxley next week? Is it false count anywhere or no DQ, whatever the stipulation is?
Well, that was next with Dick the Boozer in the back, slobbering in a dark room, but there was a lot of noise in the background. He wasn't like in his solitude room in his dungeon in Cincinnati. He was in the back room of the building where people couldn't even be bothered to be quiet while he was shooting a promo. But that's yes, next week, Edge and the Boozer for the title. And is it street fight or falls count anywhere? What? No DQ. Did you like the tag match that happened next, Brian? Because I know there's not a lot to say about many of these things. But they showed last week Brian Cage and Lance Archer attacking Powerhouse Hobbs, right? So they had a tag match with Brian Cage and Dralistico versus Powerhouse Hobbs and Hologram. And Hologram was accompanied by Harley Cameron in a hologram outfit, calling herself Harley Graham.
She's more over than he is.
But it looked like two muscle builders, bodybuilders, teaming up with two children in Halloween costumes. And as soon as they all get out there, they started with an immediate four-way where they were the two minute lucha guys. Hologram was announced at 170 pounds. And I don't believe that. They got in the ring and started having a match and doing rolling and tumbling. And meanwhile, Cage and fucking Hobbs that are 300 pounds apiece are out on the floor. Just, it didn't look real great, but they were fighting and pounding on each other. And the referee was the corpse ref, of course, Rick Knox, wasn't paying attention at all to the fight on the floor. He was checking a hold in the ring that the guy had on. It looked like two completely unrelated things going on at the same time, and the fans were completely silent for both of them because it didn't even visually make any fucking sense. Am I lying about this?
No, you're not lying. And I don't think Hologram's very good. But back to your review.
Well, it looked like what we used to see when Nick Goulas and it was still running the territory here. And he was doing the same shit he did for 25 years, a mixed man and midget tag team match. You got Bill Dundee and Cowboy Lang going against fucking Wayne Ferris and Little Tokyo. Now see, you got to be that way to... Dundee had a good 1.2 inches on Cowboy Lang.
Because Cowboy Lang was kind of tall for the midgets, wasn't he?
He was a larger midget. And there was some phony looking shit in this match, especially the tumblers, but also Cage is not good and Hobbs isn't good with him. But Hobbs beat what was his name? He's not in the hologram. He was
Dralistico
with a spine buster. And then here came Lance Archer and Mark Davis, and they yelled at Hobbs, but nobody did anything. And I'm like, Archer's there. What is that? Poor Hobbs. My Hobbs, poor Hobbs. In the back, MVP and the Hurt Syndicate. And MVP has got a string of promos going on. He is clicked in his groove, and he was in the back. He's given them a week off to go have fun. And go out and enjoy yours. No, we want to hurt some more people. We want to train. No, go have fun. I'm giving you the week off. You don't have to wrestle tonight. So off they went to have fun. But again, there was a lot of... It was a strange choice. Start out the show with Kenny, who is not a fireball orator. He's never been known to excite people with his mouth in a verbal fashion. And then you have a 6-man, the guys that were going over in the squash were barely, except for Joe, above the jobber level. And then repeated promos in the back, and then the oddest tag team match just out of nowhere. Hologram and Hobbs, Cage and Drlithico. And then you're in the back again. They showed tape of the female torture porn that they aired on the pay-per-view with Maria May and Toni Storm. And then here comes Toni Storm out. She gets on the stage. She's in the spotlight. And she's doing her accent. And she said, "This tramp is still the champ." And I got to be honest, I can't watch or listen to this stuff. It is so preposterous, but this is the only thing that they had really enjoyed up till now. The people are cheering this fucking phony bullshit. So it's the people that watch wrestling to laugh at it. And I can't blame them with this product that they're watching, but I still have some resentment toward people that laugh at wrestling. But I can understand with what they're watching. But she finished her performance, and then Megan Brain came from behind and knocked her out with a forearm with one shot from boom, and stood over her. They just showed tape. She'd been a bloody mess. She'd been pile driven. She'd been fucking beat with blunt instruments and won the match. But this girl come, boom, one forearm, flat, one down she goes and stays there. Was this a wrestling show or public access on cable where people are allowed to come and do their skits, Brian?
Well, at least her skit's over. Like you said, I may not be a big fan of just the over. I think I've said it before. I'd be a fan of it if it was on other TV shows other than wrestling. Like, who's this crazy character? She's like, the new Phyllis Diller. Who is she? But instead, it's in the middle of the show, and, everyone enjoys playing along. That's where the ironic wrestling fan comes back into play. Megan Bain. Man, I'm high on her. She's got a look. She carries herself well. We haven't seen her really work a long, good match yet. But they're going with her right away.
I got some background on her. One of the fans, when we were talking about her a show or two ago, and we were saying, how did WWE miss out on this? Apparently, AEW found her before she either had trained at all, or as I recall, had trained very little, and nobody had seen her, and they put her under a contract and sent her to wherever the fuck she was, Japan or whatever. So the poor thing, I guess, was sold a bill of goods that they were a company that could develop talent, that didn't know much about the wrestling business, didn't know how to. I mean, if you knew anything about the wrestling business and you're Megan Bain standing looking in the mirror, you go, I need to call the WWE. But, apparently that's how they got her. And now, however long her contract is going to be however long she has to serve in this purgatory before we find out if she can learn and grow and become a star to match the look.
It's like being a baseball player, and you're out of high school. You have a choice of college, maybe, or getting drafted. Or maybe you're out of college, you get drafted. Right now, she's working the minor leagues. And I don't even mean that as a shot of AEW. I'm talking about baseball, that actual example. But put in your time, get better at what you do, and when the time is right, you can go, and you may not get a ton of money right out of the gate, but you'll have the chance to, especially with her look and her size.
But see, now you're overlooking one thing, though. The baseball players had played baseball
all their lives.
Yeah. And what is going to happen here is this girl with this amazing size and look and presence and whatever is going to learn from these slapdash indie jackoffs all these bad habits and how not to think about a wrestling match and how to put shit together where your moves look like you're at a video game instead of having a match, and they're going to hold up as the pinnacle of female wrestling accomplishment, that fucking ridiculous insanity that Tony Storm and Maria did the other day, and they're going to think that's good. And then she's going to have to be retrained, which may be more difficult than training from scratch when she gets to NXT. So, Brian, I think, well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, if you wanted her to get better right now, is there a better person? I mean, maybe one or two, but are there too many better people than Tony Storm for her to work with in the ring, talking about actually working?
Well, but it depends. Again, I don't know who to go out on a limb for anymore. Tony Storm obviously wants to be an actress or whatever or something. I don't know what's going on in her mind that she would perpetrate this on the wrestling business. But there needs to be a Mickie James. We were talking about somebody who was training the girls on the LFG show or BFD show or whatever the fuck it is. And they moved her over for Michelle McCool. Mickie James would be able to speak to the girls from experience. She's been around long enough. She knows stupid shit not to do. And it's the same, she could funnel people, accentuate strengths and eliminate weaknesses, or they can just go out there and do their own thing.
They have Serena Deeb. I mean, she's not necessarily the same in terms of success as a character as Mickie James, but in terms of in-ring work.
Well, Serena can teach the mechanics and the physical part because she was a Rip Rogers student. She knows how to wrestle and knows how to work the physical part, but because she's never been in a major position and hasn't worked as a single on her own like Mickie James has, and hasn't worked for a long time in the major company to learn how to work with television production, etc., she might not be the best psychology or performance coach. But that's why you get a little bit of everything. Brian, you know what you get a little bit of everything with?
What's that? No, I don't.
The Raycon Everyday Wireless Earbuds. That's what you get a little bit of everything with.
That's a 5-star transition there. Great job.
Because you get a little bit of music, you get a little bit of news, you get a little bit of podcasts, you get a little bit of phone calls. You can do most anything with you can listen to anything with these things. You can program them to say exactly or do exactly what you want them to say and do. Play the music you want. Play your own kind of music. Live your own kind of life with the Raycon Everyday Earbuds. Nobody's going to judge you because nobody can hear what you're listening to. Can you imagine, Brad? You could be walking down the side of the street or driving down the road. You could be listening to the sound effects of some graphic pornography with a smile on your face, and nobody knows. They think you're listening to, I don't know, Barbara Mandrell. In actuality, you're listening to Vanessa Del Rio. Oh, my God. Give it to me up the ass.
Well, hold on. Let's take a step back. Let's take a giant step back. Why would you listen to anything like that walking down the street? It seems like you'd be torturing yourself. But let's get back to the sounds of podcasts and music, and out of the brain of Louisville, Raycon.
Yes. Now, is there any podcast where they play the sounds of famous porn stars getting protruded up the yin yang?
I don't know
because
anything.
That would be another thing you could listen to. The podcast world needs something different. But folks, something different comes with the everyday wireless earbuds because they're different in fact that they cost less than half the price of these other premium audio brands with similar features. Well, you don't need to spend all your money. You can get the Raycons. They know what you want. They're hooking you up. You know how they do it? Low overhead. They don't pay all those girls to make those soundtracks of those sexual encounters. They just They put a microphone out in front of the window of an apartment complex in Cleveland, and then they pass the savings on to you. And their latest model is better than ever, a 32-hour battery life. So you can, my God, you could listen to somebody literally just scream and yell to your heart's content in 32 hours. And it lets you pair with 2 devices at once, wink, wink, with the multi-point connectivity feature. And they come in a variety of vibrant colors, Brian. They've got all kinds of vibrant colors for different skin tones and festive occasions. Get the red ones for Valentine's Day. And the pink ones whenever you climb Mount Vulva. And they offer a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy where they will not ask you any questions whatsoever. They'll just take them back and they'll give you your money back, and then you'll be placed on a list. If I were you, I wouldn't try to leave the country. Brian, you got your name off that list, didn't you?
Well, there are no lists, and of course, you can listen to anything you want on your Raycons podcast, music, the finest sounds, everything from, like you said before, yin yang to lin lang, whatever it is, Raycon.
What? Yin yang to ling lang. Well, you can listen at the gym. You can listen at work. No wonder you get fired. You never hear what the boss is telling you because you're always listening to our podcast while you're at work. And you can make and receive phone calls on these things. Well, you can't actually talk into them, but you can hear your phone calls through the earbud. Can you talk into the earbuds?
I am not the authority to let the audience know exactly what to do.
Maybe we ought to be using these earbuds for our new sound apparatus here on the program.
Well, again, let's get back to the listener, Mr. and Mrs. America, and of course around the world. Well, at least let's focus on America now that I think about it. Raycon, there for you.
Well, that's good. Most of the people around the world don't like us much anymore, so they might not be listening anyway. Well, but Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea, if you don't get the Raycon everyday earbuds, you're missing out. The greatest sound quality. They've got active noise cancellation. You can drown out the most maddening of sounds, such as the daily news. And they've got all the other things, the quick charge function, the vibrant colors, 30-day guarantee. And right now, you can go to buyraycon.com, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE, and get 20% off. 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. They are the best-selling everyday earbuds in the entire category of everyday earbuds. And they're brought to you by Raycon. That's buyraycon.com/JCE. 20% off, and you can literally listen to anything. As a matter of fact, if you put these in your ears and you put your head up or your ear up against the wall, you can hear what's going on in the next room.
That is not... No, did I press mute? I did not. I am still mad. My fingers sometimes do their own thing. That is not how it works, but Raycon will be there to work for you with the latest sounds, the greatest sounds, all sounding great in your ears. Let's get out of this.
The latest sounds, the greatest sounds, all sounding great. And here's mounds of sounds and stacks of wax, all designed with you in mind. And here's one's guaranteed to blow your mind from that golden year, 1957. Buyraycon.com/JCE. 20% off.
Yes, a great deal. Great earbuds, Raycon.
Well, you better quit while you're ahead now.
JCE.
Because we see you wouldn't quit. Now, here's another thing you can do with them, but you got to lube them up first.
No, let's just move on now from here, please. Damn you. Back to AEW. Speaking of lubing things up, AEW Dynamite.
Yes, all right.
He's there. He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I had to take a break for a moment. All right, the next match was what was it called? The Dynasty Eliminator Tournament for an International Title Shot match. And it was Frank the Beast Mortis taking on the wild card who turned out to be, drum roll please, Speedball Mike Bailey. Now, I have heard the name Speedball Mike Bailey I've heard it. I've seen it in print. I have heard of that name, but I've never seen this guy wrestle. I've never seen a picture of him. I didn't know what the fuck to expect here, but I've heard this name. And Brent, I think you can agree. It sounds kind of like a cool now. Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yeah.
Right?
Like Rollerball Rocco. It's a cool name. And like you, I had seen the name, and I certainly had like kind of maybe unfairly a vision in my mind of what he could look like and what he could be. And we got to see him finally.
And it wasn't that, was it? That you might have envisioned. I think they should have called him Pinball, because that's about the size that he is, and that's what he does. He's got a karate gimmick, but it doesn't look like a legitimate karate gimmick. And they say he's a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, but I think it's a video game karate gimmick. He's wearing the flashy Far Eastern influenced jacket, and he's doing the fist in the palm pose, and he's got a great smile. Do you think those teeth are really his, or did he get those implants?
Oh, I actually was wondering about the smile too. I don't know if they were teeth. I thought it was a mouth guard.
Oh, it might have been. He's got a big old bright smile. They are the whitest.
Yeah, it was so bright. That's what made me look. Yeah.
Yeah, the whitest teeth I've ever come across. But the problem is, he's got 2 problems. Number one, he's from the Twinkle Toes school of pointing, posing, and gesticulating. And secondly, he was shorter and lighter than Aubrey Ed, who was the referee and towered over him. They didn't even announce him at a weight. But I mean, it looks like a small child that has dressed up in a fancy martial arts video game costume, and he's been training in the Junior Olympics for the uneven parallel bars. And but I should have known when everybody was saying, "Oh, this guy would be something special," that it had to be this kind of thing instead of the Braun Breaker kind of thing, where he really is special and it is going to be a fucking big star. We got another fucking master of the floor exercise. So, and he's not real smart either. He launches into the gymnastics, the flips and the kicks and the pointing and the posing. But then week 2 in wrestling school, he must have fucking been sick that week. Because he's like the rest of them. He's concentrating on all the moves he's doing and the poses he's striking, and the shit didn't make any sense. He did a moonsault off the apron to the floor on Frank the Beast, but the Beast moved. So Bailey landed on his feet, and then the Beast fucking leveled him. So the babyface hot dogs, and it backfires when the heel outsmarts him. That is Bizarro World Wrestling School lesson in week 2. And I got to think the chains on the Beast's mask have to get in the way, even if they're plastic. It's got to get in the way of something. I don't know what the fuck. They were on the floor for a while, and Aubrey stared at them. And Mike Bailey took back over on the floor and got back in the ring to do another dive to the floor. And then they went to the break. And when they came back from the break, both guys were down and immobile. So they should be cueing these guys. And it's live television, so they've got a fucking set time. They should be cueing these guys when they come back from a break where they could be in action. It's what we used to do in OVW or in Ring of Honor, or any television program that I was attempting to produce. If you're in commercial break, you tell the referee, okay, we're coming back in 15 seconds. Tell them to get in a spot or get in motion. And you wouldn't come back with guys laying in a hold. You would come back with the people up, with the guys just fighting out of the hold and giving an elbow to the gut, another elbow to the gut, and he takes off and hits the ropes, but the other guy fucking clotheslines him back down, to where when you come back from the break, the viewer at home sees the people starting to cheer and make noise and the guy starting to fight back. and running and in some type of motion where you can call that Brian trying to come out of the chin lock that he suffered for the entire commercial break, but there, wait, he's broken away and he comes off the ropes, but Cornette with a clothesline puts him down. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. You've done your call, then you do your reset. We're back on AEW. We got this and that title on the line or whatever the fuck, and people are with it instead of that. And then they got up and Mike Bailey started beating the shit out of Frank. And then the Beast was on the apron of the ring. Bailey turned around and went to hit the far ropes so that he could run back all the way across the ring at the Beast for a big boot. And he missed him. His foot went right past him and the Beast was standing still. And did you see that part where his foot went straight over his fucking shoulder and the Beast sold it anyway?
I did see that, of course.
And then he did a backflip off the fucking buckle. That was perfect. So he can't hit a stationary target with his foot, but he can do backflips and land on his feet. And I just noticed Speedball Mike Bailey is barefoot. How can you be less intimidated of a seventh grader you're about to fight? Oh, he's barefoot.
He was wrestling that whole time, and until one of the commentators actually said, he wrestles barefoot. I was like, oh shit. Because it's like half of his ankle or his whole ankle was covered, so you didn't even see his feet.
He's got some kind of kick pads or whatever that probably has a thing that goes around the foot to hold him on, but he has no shoes. And the way he wrestles, I'm pretty sure I know why he can't afford them. So then they climbed to the top and gingerly balanced for a while so that the Beast could pick Mike Bailey up and press slam him off the top rope, which was a very impressive looking bump. And then the Beast gave Bailey more big moves. And then seconds after, he'd be fine and he'd be back on offense. And the Beast is twice his size. But they were wrestling like it was, they were even competitors. And then finally, Mike Bailey did a standing backflip and landed with both knees in the middle of the Beast's stomach. I swear to God, if I was Mortis and he looks like he could do it, I would have kicked the shit out of this kid for that move and the next one. Because after he backflipped and landed with his knees in the guy's stomach, then he did a double spinning ballet pirouette into a fucking kick to the head with his heel and potatoed the fuck out of the Beast. Did you see that one? I watched it in slow motion.
What did you think?
He kicked the side of the guy's head in with his fucking heel after he spun around for 3 times. I swear to God, I have never seen the lack of caring for or taking care of another motherfucker's body than I have from this company since they've been on the air in 50 years in the wrestling business. That guy wouldn't have got a chance to throw that kick but once if either Mortis was really a beast or the booker had an idea on what the fuck he was doing, because Jesus H. Christ. But anyway, so we got another midget that's fucking doing the high wire and the trapeze act. And I bet you he'll go far in this tournament because Tony won't want to beat him because he's doing somersaults. What'd you think? Let down?
First time seeing this guy, a bit of a letdown when he came out and I realized he was a smaller guy. Not my thing, but let me ask you a question and try to look at the positives. After talking about the story of Charles Midget Fischer, do you think maybe Tony should lean into the fact that most of his roster, with the exception of some people like the Hurt Syndicate or whatever, are smaller guys, both in height and in weight, and in some cases both, and have a middleweight division so that it's not as ridiculous?
Well, then he'd have to change the name of all of his belts, and he's got so many belts that could put him out of fucking business.
No, it won't. He loves that. He loves new belts, and he has lots of money. And he doesn't love money. He loves giving it away. So it may work.
Yeah, so it needs to be the international light heavyweight title and the continental junior heavyweight title and the fucking TBS middleweight title.
But so just use it to differentiate yourself from WWE. We have, this style of wrestling here. Even if it's not true, just fucking run with it so you have something.
Oh, it's true. They have a different style of wrestling than the WWE. They could advertise that all day long and not get fucking heat.
How tall was
false advertising?
How tall was Speedball or Pinball, whatever he's called him?
Could he been 5'6"?
Okay, so that's what I was thinking. Was he like 5'5", 5'6"? So you were kind of in the same range.
How big is Aubrey? Because she was a little taller than he is. A little broader in the beam, too, but she's let herself go.
And he had like a Tatanka haircut. So just the whole thing. I was like, who is this guy?
He looked a little bit like Paul London's younger, smaller, littler brother.
Was it Paul London a smaller guy?
Yes, he was. But not this small.
Do you think Speedball's going to get Omega? Do you think Speedball, the way they treated him here, his debut? Do you think?
I don't know. If you'd asked me a year ago, I'd said maybe Omega'd get a Speedball, but I mean, why would? Yes, I'm sure that they'd love to wrestle each other so they can do all of the cartwheels and the round-offs and the cheerleading routines, but it wouldn't draw any fucking money. Anybody that's gonna in any way enjoy seeing Speedball Mike Bailey is already watching this program because it's no different than everything else they got. And speaking of everything else they got, now what has happened? These obnoxious delinquent children, Nick Plain is bowing up and yelling at his father figure, Christian Cage, and he's an insolent young pup, and I think he needs to have a knot jerked in his tail, don't you?
Whatever ends all this, I'm all for.
Is there some way we can break this group up? Anything?
Christian, I'll use your terminology. He bowed up at Mama Wayne, and all I'm thinking is she can kick the shit out of Christian if she wanted to. She's bigger than him. She's taller than Christian.
She's the tallest member of the group, and counting her large upper frontal protuberances, I believe she's got the body weight on at least two of them.
Yeah, what'd you think of all this?
Well, they were in the back. It was Christian, the Cougar, and the Delinquents, Nick Plain and Pip Sabian. And Christian kicked Renee out because she was related to Moxley. So he did a promo about the pay-per-view fiasco and how he was cheated and he should have been the champion and everything. And suddenly, Nick turns around and said, "You're making excuses and you're telling lies. And you owe all of us an apology for what you're saying." And that's when Christian shoved him. How about this? And Nick's mom got up in Christian's face and he threatened to send her back to the midnight shift at Waffle House. And that is a complete lie. She was not that bad off. She got off every day at 4:30. And did not come home smelling like she was scattered, smothered, and covered. She was diced every now and then.
The fuck is wrong with you? Back to the patriarchy.
But yes, the jerky of the patriarchy. And then Christian told Nick off real good and pushed him around. It was a good promo. Nobody cares because they don't care about this fucking group because it's all just blah. But again, so he's I think the one that's probably had the most heat is Nick's mom, because it's obvious that she don't belong there. She's just standing there because she's stuck in the fucking group with the rest of these people. So she's got some heat from just not belonging there and never doing anything. So when he's bullied, they haven't set her up to be any kind of sympathetic figure. So he's bullying her. They're probably, yeah, Christian. And with Nick just now grew a set of balls and has just developed these thoughts all of a sudden that he's got to say it on TV. I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but
I didn't like the stuff about
like
his
you
dad.
said,
I didn't like the stuff about his dad. I thought that,
Oh, yeah. And again, it always has to be about, and your father died and he was a horrible failure. And well, why is anybody going to listen to that? But that's what they've been doing since the start. And Christian's whole thing has been about everybody's dead father. And you could be a father figure if you had a good line of bullshit and easily, swayed and impressionable minds. Or Trump has done the same thing. But you can't, you've got to sell them something that they're getting that's positive, not just berate them and talk about what a loser their father was and we're glad he's dead. That it doesn't make any sense. And that's why nobody's giving a shit about it. Also, because who cares about Pip Sabian and Nick? He was a shiny toy for about 15 minutes for Tony, but now he's got other teenage prodigies to play with. So that was that.
Yet there's more.
Brian, there is indeed more. And I feel some false hope. I think they are trying to, or somebody has the germ of something, or maybe something will happen to make MJF appealing again, based on this next segment. We can always hope. But MJF came out and cut a very short promo, which was refreshing again. That everybody knows he should have won on Sunday. It's not over with hangnail Adam Page, blah, blah, blah. But then MVP's music plays. And MVP comes out. And at first they're looking at each other warily. And they say MVP, MJF. And then they hug and they smile and they're old friends. And it's revealed that MVP first met MJF when he was 18 years old on an independent show, and he knew that there was
any man who could bond over Court Bauer's bad pay could be friends forever.
And he knew that there was something to MJF. And actually, that's the same time I met MJF over Court Bauer. Actually, I had negotiated fairly decent pay, but then I found out how long the goddamn days were. But remember what I said to you? I said, MJF, he asked questions. He came and talked to the announcers at the announce position. He was talking to the TV people about camera angles, how they were shooting things. He asked, as MVP said, when he rode with him, he met him at an independent show. It wasn't that he asked him a million questions. It was that he knew the questions to ask. And he knew that he was going to be something. He could tell this kid was on the ball. This was before he was, shot through the heart by the bad booking.
He said that.
But anyway.
MVP said that MJF took him to see an HR documentary somewhere in Jersey from Bad Brains. That was pretty impressive to hear.
Okay, and tell me what any of that is. Tell me what any of that is. I don't know who Bad Brains is or what his...
Bad Brains.
I thought he was talking about CSNY, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Bad Brains is a band, simply put, you would never like ever for any reason. But I got to see him a few years ago at the shop in Williamsburg. But not the kind of thing you expect to hear name dropped in a segment like this. That got my attention.
Well, I'm glad you understood it. But nevertheless, MVP did a brilliant job here, talking to MJF about how, but now, you've lost your way. You need to regroup. He built him up and said he was proud of him, but what are you doing, man? Why are you whining about Sunday? Why aren't you angry? Are you mad, hurting people? You've lost your edge. The boys in the back don't respect you. They don't fear you. But they fear the Hurt Syndicate, and that's what you're missing. And maybe I can help you again. And he offered the card, which is, again, compared to the golden ticket. But MJF, at first, he pushed the hand with the card down. He said, I do my own thing, and I don't need your help or advice. I was world champion for 406 days. And then MVP just said, focus on the word was. And he offered the card again. And this time MJF took it and he started thinking. And MVP left and MJF, there's got to be something. Something has to be done to salvage MJF, to kind of give him a restart, to have him be the obnoxious heel in a derogatory and taunting and smart ass way instead of the screaming mental case heel that he's had to become. There's got to be something to get him back in the more wins than losses and more home run promos than misses with these rotten stories and horrible opponents. Could it be MVP taking an interest in MJF as a single, managing the Hurts as a team, MJF not pulling up in the Hurt mobile and being inseparable like they're the Four Horsemen, but MVP being in MJF's corner, giving him veteran advice. The only place that is weak in his game is just because he's so young, with the veteran advice on how to react to things and coaching in matches. Does this completely reset him and he becomes a superstar again? Or it's forgotten in 3 weeks and nobody prospers? What do you think?
I don't know if any of these guys would agree to it if it was something that could be dropped in 3 weeks. But then again, I also don't know what Jeff Jarrett is. So what do I know? Yeah, I was hopeful for this. And I know even when I don't like an MJF segment, people still don't think lately that I'm mean enough about him. I mean, it's really crazy.
Now we've got to he's got to be boiled in oil and the fat sold for soap. We have to completely turn our backs. The talent is still there somewhere. It needs produced and it needs to have not been ruined for the past 2 years.
And I've been saying MJF needs to be involved with different people and he needs to be involved with main eventers. And he gets all of that here with not just MVP. As far as I'm concerned, it's a package deal. It's MVP and the Hurt Syndicate. If MJF's involved with MVP, that means there's now involvement between MJF and the Hurt Syndicate. That could go in a number of different ways.
Well, yes, but I don't think it should be overdone because then MJF, who's always flourished on his own, I don't want him to become part of a group, but with a experienced veteran manager in his corner that can lead him back to the top. And then if there was a 6-man to be had or a big angle or whatever, one of the other Hurts could obviously get involved. But I think just the dynamic of having MVP and MJF together would do a world of good for MJF.
You keep saying in his corner. Do you think he should actually work the corner? Because usually he's been going to the commentary.
Yes, I think he should be his fucking manager. He should be on the promos with him, not to do all of them. But to be there, he should be the guy that's giving him the veteran advice. And the story is basically, yes, he just lost his edge because it came so quickly and so naturally to MJF. And now MVP's the fucking coach that has to bring back the eye of the tiger or whatever and put him in the corner for big main event matches because you might be able to obviously use him in some crucial situation and make it they could be Strangler Lewis and Luthez, for heaven's sake. What a dynamic combination that was.
Hopefully not Shawn Michaels and Jose Lothario.
Hopefully not that. That is what you would not do with that thing there. But anywho, would you like to move on?
Oh, I would love to. Yes.
Apparently so would Max Caster, and I think he needs to, because what the fuck is... They send him out to the ring to do the promo that nobody wants to hear, the chant that nobody is going to do. They scoff, boo at him. And it's like Vince McMahon, like cringy, bad 2019 era WWF. And then he's got an open challenge. And who answers the challenge from Max Caster? Take a shit. He's a fucking heel. He's another heel. But not against Caster, because the people don't like him because he's a whiny little bitch and a fucking goof. So they're cheering for Take a Shit, who is one of their top main event heels. That was Caster tried to weasel out, and he offered, well, I could just join Don's family. But Take a Shit knocked him out, covered him, pulled him up at the count of 2, gave him a suplex, and then covered him and pinned him 1, 2, 3. And the fans cheered him, so they turned Take a Shit babyface, one of their top heels, at the expense of again trying to bury Max Caster, a now mid-card at best heel that people already don't like this shit to begin with. Help me try to understand and grip all of this, Brian.
Well, first, let me start by disagreeing with you again. I said it last week and you thought I was crazy. I'm entertained by whatever the hell this is. And I'm under the impression it's Max Caster's idea, and this is kind of his thing. So now I'm really intrigued to see where this is going to go, because it doesn't seem like it could go anywhere but nowhere, but I'm dying to see
where
now.
Can it go? He is making himself look like an idiot, act like an idiot, get beaten in seconds by everybody that he fucking faces.
He's going to get that chant. I'll bet you he gets that chant. He keeps this up a few more weeks. I bet you one of these shows he gets the chant. And he's into it. He's really into it. It's like if Vince was punishing someone and that someone was himself. That's what this is, because apparently he thinks this is good stuff. So
okay, if this is his idea, then somebody needs to try to get him some therapy. Jericho is not doing the silly Hi Guys promos anymore. I guess the learning tree has been dropped after it placed so highly in the rotten gimmick polling of the year. But now he's doing good promos, serious promos, heel promos against people that nobody is going to want to see him fucking wrestle. Gravity and Bandito. It was a much better promo. You can watch these. You couldn't even watch the learning tree or the whatever the fuck that was. But does anybody want to see Chris Jericho against Bandito besides the same audience that is already watching this shit again to begin with, that will buy anything and believe anything's good?
And even if they wanted to see it, where would they see it? Isn't that a Ring of Honor feud? We haven't seen Chris Jericho wrestle on the show in a little while. It's just been these promos about stuff in Ring of Honor.
Yes, because that's, he's trying to lead the next generation over there. That's where he can serve out 7 of the next 9 years of his 10-year contract. And then we got Willow Nightingale versus Penelope Pitstop. And I'm going to tell you what, there was some of the fakest shit that I've ever seen in a while in wrestling in this match and on this program in general. But I got to be honest with you, it was blown away in comparison. After Willow won, Penelope jumped her and hit, that word is used in quotation marks, hit her with the weakest chair shot I've ever seen on television across the back. And you could hear the fans go, like the air went out of them. The big drawback is like, oh. It took the air out of the people. Did you see that, or did you skip this to go outside?
I saw it. I've never seen that before on TV. I saw it once in person at the ECW Barely Legal pay-per-view when I was there. Lance Storm hitting Rob Van Dam with chair shots. It was the same thing.
What? Was Van Dam not looking at him and Lance was scared? Because normally Lance would have to apologize afterwards if it was something that was going to.
But this may have beaten that. This was not. Why are. Again, I go back to what you say about Dusty Rhodes, don't do shit you don't know how to do.
Don't do shit you don't know how to do, baby. What?
Or did Willow say, if you hit me with that fucking chair, I'm going to kick the shit out of you? What happened?
Or did they say, Penelope, you have to hit her with this fucking chair or we're going to fire you? And she's like, well, I can't do it because I'm not strong enough. I don't know. But anyway, that was that. And then Penelope got some fake heat. And then here came Chris Statlander and made the save. And then here came Megan Brain in and leveled both of them and did a big move on Statlander and stood there. So again, some more fakery followed by some more baby faces being left on their face.
What do you mean by fake heat?
Fake heat, as in all this shit that I'm doing to you looks fucking fake. Whether it's be the fake kicks or the fake punches or when they just wave their fist in the air in the general vicinity of the guy's head while they're sitting on top of him. It looks fucking fake. It's bullshit. What I don't know why it in every match that nobody can put an end to it by just saying, I'm not going to do that. I will get on top of the guy and I will punch and kick slower, but with feeling, and it will look good, like I'm trying to hurt the fucking guy. Or I can get on there and in high definition, 4K, fucking 3D, modern television, you can see that there's 6 inches in between my fist and the fucking guy's head. Jesus Christ. Anyway, you know what? Mercedes Moon finally got a sore throat and couldn't talk. I wanted to bake a cake. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. But then she spoke anyway. Did you see this interview?
No, I missed this. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about when you just went off there. No.
Okay, well, Renee Moxley Good was in the back with Mercedes Moan. And Mercedes tried to do the say hello to your CEO, but she said, I got kicked in the throat over the weekend. And she had Renee do, oh, then in that case, San Diego, where the fuck they're at, say hello to your CEO. Nobody still wanted to say hello to her. And Mercedes was starting to do a promo where she had some voice. I don't know. Maybe she did have a sore throat. And she was going to sound raspy, so she was trying to limit that. But remember that girl that was on last week that we said, what the fuck? Did somebody from the hot dog stand just walk in? It was Billy Starks, the teenager, apparently from here in Louisville.
That's right. I remember that.
Well, she walked in with the oddest like the hairdo of like if you're going to Walmart to run and get a few things about 11 at night. That hairdo and a trailer park house dress, she looked like a fucking fan that walked in. She's not comfortable. You can tell that on interviews. She got it out, but it looked like that she was worried that she was going to receive an electric shock from some kind of shock collar if she fucked it up any second. Her eyes were darting. And she wants a match next week, and Mercedes said, okay. So now we get Mercedes, who ain't worth 2 shits and a tickle, versus a teenager that has no hairdo, not allowed in a makeup chair yet, and was wearing a fucking house dress from West Virginia with sequins. That's gonna put some butts in seats. What the fuck is going on here? Anyway, you missed that completely.
I'm so sorry I missed it.
And then Tony Schiavone introduced Will Ospreay. And Ospreay comes out and it's a live promo in the ring. And of course, he referred to the cage match. And of course, he says, Kyle Felcher will be a world champion one day. Because that's, what every great babyface would have said about every great heel after they beat him in a cage match. But he's going to be a world champion one day. No, the fucking guy tried to kill me and I fucking got him instead, and I'm glad and I hope he dies. It's a goddamn appropriate response. But nevertheless, Ospreay went into a long bit, and I got to give him this. He's trying to have a lot of personality. He's trying to be one of the bros, bruv. He's trying to be the top babyface and be able to just roll these promos out. And he did a long bit about lying to his wife that he wasn't going to do anything stupid in the cage. And it took a while. Brian, I'm going to say that the summation was it looked like that he was having a lot more fun telling that story than the fans were listening to it. Didn't it to you?
It certainly did, yes. And Tony Schiavone seemed miserable if you looked at his face during this.
Well, but now you know what it's resting Schiavone face at this point. He always looks like he's had some kind of barbed wire something shoved up his ass. But Will was laughing and giving Tony the ha-ha and the ribs, like, you know what I'm saying, bruv. No, nobody was really reacting to what you were saying, bruv. But he wants a shot at the world title. And he wants it. And when should he take his shot? Now, here's the thing. He says, when should I take my shot? When does it count the most? And he points up to the fucking banner. All in Texas, the stadium show. Is that thing still in a stadium as of this moment?
As of this moment, yes.
They haven't changed it like they did the Australia show.
There have been no changes. The big all-in this summer.
Well, it's July. How long ahead of time did they change the Australia?
I don't remember.
It was a couple of months. But you know what? They're going to have a harder time changing this one because they've sold the city of Arlington a bill of goods about how many people they were going to attract to the fucking town. They better hope for tornado warnings. Then they could have some kind of explanation. But anyway, like as someone said on Twitter, like a Temu WrestleMania promo, he pointed at the All In Texas banner and said he's entering the Owen Hart tournament. Not the, hold on, let me check my notes, Dynasty Eliminator tournament for an international title match so that the guy who holds that can be the best in the world, but he's entering the Owen Hart tournament where the winner will get a world title shot so he can be the best in the world. And he said, and I'm going to be in there with other great competition like Edge. No reaction. It's another baby face. Nobody wants to see that match to begin with. And then he mentions Swerve. No reaction. Who wants to see Swerve versus Ospreay? No fucking body. Then he mentions Moxley. And there was a smattering of no boos, like somebody just let a loud fart in the movies, and you go, oh no! Like they were offended that was an option. And that's when they announced, or they may have announced it beforehand, but they reiterated that next week it would be Moxley versus Edge in a title match in a street fight. So it's a street fight. No DQ. So, and Ospreay he did the promo. He's entering the Owen Hart tournament. So we pretty much know what the main event is now. It'll be Ospreay going for the world title against whoever the fuck. And if it's Moxley, that means April, May, 4 more months of this dreck.
You know, the Moxley push may be the biggest example there is of Tony Khan ignoring his fan base. I can't think of a bigger one.
I think you're right, because I mean, he's done a lot of bad things, but the fan base liked many of the bad things he did, especially early on before they caught a whiff of the way things were going to turn out.
And even stuff like Punk, that like split a portion of the fan base. You still had a lot of supporters. With Moxley, the hardcore AEW fans don't like it. The people who mock AEW don't like it. Nobody seems to like it. And Tony Khan's insistent on it.
Maybe he just doesn't have the courage to tell Moxley, no, this sucks. We're not doing it anymore. I pay you a fortune. Do whatever the fuck I tell you to do. But then again, you got Tony Khan telling you what to do. But for Moxley, that would probably be an improvement. Can't believe I said that. Anyway, would you like to know what the next interview backstage was?
Oh, yeah.
Renee with Jay White. Help me. Jay White just became a babyface and came out to help Edge, right?
He's been involved with
Right?
he's been involved with everything with Edge and the Moxley crew for weeks. Yeah.
Okay, well, he started out making fun of Osprey, another babyface, and said they were protecting Osprey from him. What? The AEW is protecting Osprey from me. Well, that doesn't. And then he said, I didn't hit Edge on purpose at the pay-per-view. Remember, he swung the briefcase, Moxley moved, Jay White hit Edge, but it wasn't on purpose. And he was saying it straight, not like a heel denying something. So first he's knocking another babyface, saying they're protecting Osprey from him. Then he claims innocence. I didn't hit Edge on purpose at the pay-per-view. And then he started screaming about how he wanted to be the number one contender. I don't know what's going on with him. Blah.
Yeah.
Could you understand the screaming?
I think he would be a big star in the middleweight division that I proposed earlier.
He does have that slim waist and those girlish hips. Well, then Renee was in the back. God damn, this girl's been in more laps than a napkin. She was in the back with Hangnail, and they were walking, and he literally bumped into MJF. Literally, and that word is being used for once appropriately. He bumped into MJF walking the other direction. And Renee just looks up and runs, oh my God, and runs away. And they proceed to talk to each other for the next, I'd say 3 or 4 minutes. Paige calmly telling MJF that he knows now MJF really cares about what the fans think of him. And MJF saying, well, I'm going to back up a little bit from you because you smell like rotten ass. But I'm going to call your bluff, Hangman. And then he goes on a long rant where MJF will go on to be a Hall of Famer and a GOAT. And Paige will fall short of the pinnacle and wallow in his own self-pity. And the fans are going to get tired of waiting for Hangnail to win the big one. But MJF, I'm going to be the world heavyweight champion over and over. Guess that means you're going to get beat like a fucking rug, because to be the champion over and over, you have to keep losing it. I would think it would be more of a thing I will be the champion that will reign more than my previous 400 days. Nevertheless, Paige's response to that was, well, we'll see, won't we? These two guys were having a snide discussion with little digs at each other's character after they fought Sunday, and one guy tried to set the other guy on fucking fire. And now they're giving each other personal digs about their improper character. The fuck? Am I the only one that remembered that? That didn't they just try to literally disembowel each other?
Yeah, it was last week, I believe.
Last week, and MJF was going to set the motherfucker on fire, and now they're exchanging witticisms a foot away from each other. Any comments on that one before we go to the main event?
I can't justify it. I can't add anything to it.
That's what MVP, please save our boy. And now it was time for the main event of the evening. Hold on, let me check my notes. In the Dynasty Eliminator Tournament for the International title shot, the main event of this television show was Pockets against Hechichero. And they rang the bell to start the thing at 9:58. I guarantee you, so that it was late enough that it wouldn't get the blame for killing the quarter. Even if the quarter died, they only got 2 minutes of it. Now the overrun should suck because Joe Schmo wasn't on. It was Modern Family again, a Modern Family rerun. Can you believe that they seriously put that on a television show? That they put it on a television show, period, is embarrassing. But that was their main event and a tournament match for a tournament that we're supposed to take seriously.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I didn't watch that match. It's not a main event.
I hope you don't think I fucking did. I didn't even bother to check. If anybody came out with a chainsaw or something during the overrun, I don't know that happened either.
Well, we'll probably be able to figure that out when we talk about the ratings, but that was AEW Dynamite on, what was it? It was the
March 12th.
The 12th of March.
The 12th of never. Are they serious? This is bad indie wrestling on television, and they don't even have like the X star that they pay a guarantee to come in and main event to show for it. It's just bad indie wrestling.
Well, Jim, let's talk about the ratings, and let's see if these were good or bad indie ratings. AEW Dynamite on March 12th on TBS, 8 to 10:08 p.m. On average, watched by 628,000 viewers.
Boy, howdy, they ought to be turning cartwheels down there in Jacksonville. They got back up over 600. Remember, they were 500 something for 2 weeks. They hit 600 even last week, and they actually got 28,000 more people for this shit show. That's luck.
This is 7% up on the 4-week average of 585. Let's go to the
What would they have tuned in to see here that could have been advertised ahead of time? Or is it just they just happened to pick a night like this to watch the show? There's nothing. I don't know what they advertised ahead of time, but there's nothing that could be advertised ahead of time. No match.
Well, again,
we'll hear from so-and-so.
Well, although comparing it to last week, we have to bring up they were against NXT in a lot of places last week. So that's
very true, because they were bouncing back and forth as we saw all over the place. But
and it killed the key demo. But let's go to the ratings here. These were these are television ratings. That is indeed the word.
Yes, that's the word that we normally use every week here in this segment.
These were compiled by WrestleNomics, quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Kenny Omega live promo, Eli Thesis, Gabriel Eros, and Vinny Pacifico versus the Ops, the Ricochet backstage promo, and the Swerve Strickland backstage promo. 749,000 viewers.
Okay, I think they started out a little bit better than last week from what I recall. Not the 8s and 9s that they used to have, but those days are gone. The Big Bang Theory got poisoned. But they're gonna lose some fucking viewers over the course of this thing if that's where they're starting.
Well, we go to quarter 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. The Swerve Strickland Cope backstage confrontation, the John Moxley backstage promo, and the start of Brian Cage and Dralistico versus Powerhouse Hobbs and Hologram. 604,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Now let me reevaluate that. They lost 145,000 people in the first 15 minutes. Now where they are, they're going to have to stay fairly steady until at least the last couple quarters of this thing to be able to make the average.
Well, we go to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation of Cage and Dralistico versus Hobbs and Hologram. The post-match with Lance Archer and Mark Davis. The Hurt Syndicate backstage promo. And the Tony Storm Mariah May video. Followed by Storm Megan Bain ramp angle. And an ad break. 645,000 viewers.
So the girls brought back 41,000 sexually frustrated AEW fans. What I can read into that.
Well, we go to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m.
What is there for us frustrated wrestling fans?
The Beast Mortos versus Speedball Mike Bailey with
Speed Bailey. It just ought to be Speed Bailey.
With picture-in-picture, 611,000 viewers. Also, the low point in the key demo, 198,000.
And I mean, I would expect the last quarter or two to be lower than this just because of the stinky show leading up to it. But again, who's going to watch this fucking bull in a mask against a guy that we've never seen that looks like he's in the 6th grade?
It'll be interesting to see who stays to watch him the next time he's on. We go now to the big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. Continuation of Beast versus Bayley, the Patriarchy backstage angle, the MJF backstage angle, and the MJF MVP live promo. 649,000 viewers. And the high point in the key demo, 244.
So they went from the outhouse to the penthouse in the key demo in 2 segments. And at the top of the hour, they gained 38,000 people to get them back a little bit over where they were in quarter 3. And it was MJF. He still means a little something till they get finished stomping those embers out.
Well, we go now to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. An ad break. The Max Caster live promo, Caster versus Takeshita, a Revolution recap, the Chris Jericho backstage promo, and the start of Penelope Ford versus Willow Nightingale with picture-in-picture. 634,000 viewers.
And back down 15. They're still in the pocket. From quarter 2 on, they've been between 604 and 649. And I have my suspicions, but I'll wait for 7 and 8 in the overrun to tell you.
Let's go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The continuation of Ford versus Willow. The post-match with Megan Bayne. The Mercedes Moné Billy Starks backstage angle. And the Will Ospreay live promo. 608,000 viewers.
And still in that same pocket. And now quarter 8 has to fall off the cliff.
We go now to quarter 8. I remind you, we have an 8-minute overrun. Quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The Jay White backstage promo, an ad break, Adam Page and MJF's backstage angle, and the start of Orange Cassidy versus Hechicero with picture-in-picture. 570,000 viewers. 8-minute overrun, including the post-match with Speedball Mike Bailey. 535,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. So the lowest quarter hour was the last, as I figured, but then they managed to run 35,000 people off the overrun. Not only did nobody tune in to watch Modern Family, but the people that were already watching this fucking show wouldn't hang with it because of pockets. This is what we've got now. They used to start a few years ago with the Big Bang lead-in that was 800-something thousand or 900-something thousand, and they would lose the viewership pretty steadily through the show, but because they started higher, they were still ending up in a 6s or 7s, and that was considered crummy at the end of the show. Now what they've done is they're starting lower, but they're still losing usually a good chunk of people after the first 15 minutes that just didn't bargain for anything like this. But they're more consistent now because they are down to the people that are going to watch this show because this is the kind of wrestling that they like, or they hope it's going to be good, or they're more devoted. And they might bounce back and forth a little bit, but after the first quarter, until quarter 8, they were between 604 and 649,000 people. And it goes back and forth rather than just being a continuous downhill drop that like it used to be. So I think this is the base audience. And then quarter 8, they're losing another 38,000, being 570, and then another 35,000 for the overrun. That's when the base audience of 600 and something thousand sees that, okay, the only thing that's left is something that we don't even want to see. And then they lose about 75,000 of those. But otherwise, if this many people are watching this show, they're watching it on purpose. They don't care whether it's any good or not, because these shows have been worse and worse. So this, to me, seems like it's the base audience. They're going to have to really fuck up in some kind of major way to lose a significant portion of the 650,000 they've got left. Don't you think?
If I'm reading this chart correctly, there's a WrestleNomics chart here it seems to indicate this past week that we just reviewed was down 19% off of last year, the same week. And if you look at the entire year, 24, the entire year, was 18% less than 23. And so far, 25 is 25% less than 24. And that's the first quarter of the year, by and large.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that they have lost audience every year because of all the reasons we've said. How long can you watch the same goddamn thing? The same kind of matches, the same way, and they've done everything. But they're gonna get a baseline to where that, you know, this is the amount of people that will watch or tolerate or get into or be interested in indie wrestling in the United States. And that's about where they're at now. They might lose small numbers at a time now, but I don't think they can do almost anything and run the rest of these people off because this is what those people like. They think it's good. So we'll see. I don't, you know, in a year, we'll see if we're talking about they're starting in the 6s and ending in the 4s instead of starting in the 6s and ending in the 5s.
Well, those are the ratings, AEW Dynamite. We'll see what happens next week. And this is your show.
Did we start in the good stuff and end in the bad stuff?
I'm not sure. It's all the main event in my eyes. That's what I say.
Well, in that case, folks, tune in a few days to the next drive-thru for more main events, and then tune in the next week for another Jim Cornette experience in a main event. And in the meantime, tune into all the other main events of us on YouTube. Just main event your ass off with us. And I'm done. I don't know what I'm saying now. I'm rambling. It's time for me to go. Thank you. Fuck you. And bye-bye, everybody.